If you're thinking about moving to Medford, Oregon, maybe you're relocating for work or you just want to retire to a wonderful area, this video has everything you could ever imagine. From the best and the worst parts of Medford to the pros and the cons, to the driving tour of downtown Medford, Oregon, and even interviews with local residents who share all sorts of information about what they love and what they hate about living here in Medford, Oregon. So enjoy this super guide and reach out if there's anything I can do to help you. My contact information is below, or as always, in the description of this video. We're on Crater Lake Highway. We're passing over I-5. So this is like the main kind of biggest intersection or overpass, I guess you could say, in Southern Oregon. And a lot of people, you know, when they get into Medford, this is where they start. So it would be, you know, this exit on I-5 is kind of the starting point. And so we're heading west right now towards Highway 99, which is another big intersection. So on the left here, you'll see we've got Target, and then the Rogue Valley Mall is right over here. There's the entrance to Rogue Valley Mall right there by In-N-Out. And so that's, you know, a lot of big shopping and stuff over there. And up ahead of us, you'll see the Northgate Shopping Center and the intersection to Highway 99, which is also Pacific Highway. So we're on Crater Lake Highway right now, and that's Pacific Highway. We're gonna go left into downtown Medford, but if you were to go right, that would take you into Central Point. And if you were to go straight, it'd take you out towards Jacksonville. So a lot of options from this area, and it's actually, you know, right up here is probably the biggest intersection in Southern Oregon, I would say. Not counting the one back there because that's more of an overpass than an intersection, but anyway. So this area up here is pretty cool. Like, it's actually relatively newer in terms of the development. The Northgate Shopping Center is what it's called. And they have all sorts of stores and stuff in there, like REI, Public Lands, Dick's Sporting Goods, Trader Joe's is in there. There's Petco, Vitamin Shop, all sorts of stuff. And then a bunch of restaurants as well. There's a Subway, there's a Five Guys over on the right-hand side, a Chipotle, a Chick-fil-A, all sorts of good stuff. So, and the Ram was actually a pretty cool restaurant. So a lot of good stuff in there. Lots of shopping and different sorts of things. So a pretty popular area, really, and it's nice to see that development, you know, continuing to grow. There's a lot more construction happening in there. So, you know, I'm sure there's gonna be even more stores going in no time, but for right now, I mean, it's great, and it's growing. There's Black Rock Coffee over there as well, all sorts of good stuff. And again, if you go to the right here, that takes you over towards Central Point. There's a lot more, you know, additional shopping over here. Going that way towards Central Point, there's another like healthy grocery store there. That's a lot of like vitamin oriented stuff, but nice grocery store. But one of the things I want you guys to pay attention to as you're watching this is two things, okay? So first is just pay attention to how many homeless people you see. And I say that because you'll read in the comments of a lot of my videos that, oh my gosh, Southern Oregon is overrun with homeless people. And I just want you to pay attention as we do this tour, because I think after you see this tour, you might have a different opinion than that. So just check that out. And then also, same thing with drugs. Like, I don't think you're gonna see anybody shooting up on the side of the street, but you know, I never have. So that'd be a first for both of us. But anyway, something to just pay attention to is just what you see as you're driving through. So this is called Court Street, and it turns into Central. And Central is, you know, one of the two main streets that goes through downtown Medford. But this is Court, which turns into Central, and it'll take us right into the downtown area. And then the other one, coming back the other way, is called Riverside. So those are kind of the two main ones as we make our way into downtown here. But this is McAndrews. This is another pretty busy street here. It's a one-way coming up, and if you were to turn right here on McAndrews, that'd take you out towards like West Medford, and actually over to the over by the new Rogue X Community Center. So that's off of Ross Anley, which if you go up McAndrews, you take a right on Sage Road, you'd be over there by Ross Anley and the new Rogue X Convention Center, which is huge and awesome from what I've heard. I haven't been into it yet, but it's supposed to be really, really incredible. as we get into downtown, you'll see like there's actually been quite a bit of development happening there, like some newer buildings, the Lithia building and stuff, and some good restaurants that have come into town and those sorts of things. So it's pretty, you know, I don't know if I would call it up and coming necessarily, but it's definitely, you know, downtown that's been, some effort's been gone into to try to make it a little more attractive and more appealing to people. But the Lithia headquarters is definitely the biggest building in downtown. It's Lithia Motors, who's a publicly traded automotive dealership company, and they're one of the largest in the nation, if not the largest. But they're, you know, huge, and they're headquartered right here in Medford, Oregon. So this intersection right up here at Jackson Street is kind of what I would think of as like the start of downtown. You know, as we get kind of through here, you'll see, but this is kind of what I would refer to as like the beginning point of downtown Medford. Traffic around downtown typically isn't very busy. It's not. It's kind of what it is right now. It's 3:30 on a Monday, so not like it's rush hour or anything, but even during the busiest times of the day, the traffic down here is not a whole lot different than this. You're, you know, not going to get stuck in bumper to bumper traffic or anything like that. So this is 4th Street right up here, and again, you take a right and you kind of find your way into West Medford and keep on going straight here on Riverside, and we will be right into the thick of it, of downtown. We got the Elks Lodge on the left here. Old building, been around forever. We've got a peek of the Lithia building over there on the left. We'll get a better view of that on our way down Riverside. But this is downtown. Here she is, downtown Medford. The Woolworth building's been around, again, you know, forever. And here you just kind of have some random shops and some different restaurants and that kind of stuff in this area of downtown. This is Main Street that we're coming up on, and so this is kind of one of those main one-ways that goes the other direction, and we'll come up that here in a minute. But you have the Criterion Theater on the left. I've talked about that in some of my videos. They do plays and different performances and stuff. And then we'll see the Road Community College and the library up here on the left here in a second, but more, you know, restaurants and those sorts of things here. Really good pizza place here, Ollie's Pizza on the left. Pretty good spot. And there's the Jackson County Library on the left, and the Road Community College is kind of connected to that. So I'm going to keep going up Central here a few more blocks, and it turns back into Riverside. So I'm just going to give you guys kind of the whole view of it. There's not really anything too special down this way, but while we're at it, you know, while I'm giving you the tour, I might as well give you the full tour, right? So I always, you know, tell people I'm not trying to just show you the good. I'm going to show you all of it, and then you can make your decision on whether you think it's good, bad, or whatever. But this is it. So just more random shops, cannabis shops, dispensaries, you know, all sorts of stuff. Hartley's Motel, whatever. All sorts of different stuff out here. And we're going to come up on our turning point here in a quick second. But yeah, as you can see, I mean, this is just kind of older, you know, older part of town, and hasn't really been, you know, renovated or much lately. Some places here and there, but not a whole heck of a lot. So we'll go ahead and turn on this one. So if you were to keep on going straight out here, this would take you into like South Medford, and like over, you know, there's a new Providence medical building and Road Credit Union headquarters and stuff down there. But now we are on Riverside, and so this is, you know, the one way going back up against Central. We'll head down here back into the downtown area, and then we'll go up Main Street to show you what that looks like and give you kind of the full view of downtown from both directions. And if you were to take a right here on 12th, it would take you underneath I-5 and over by like Hawthorne Park. It feels like a whole different side of town, but it's actually literally just on the other side of I-5. So I don't know if you can see I-5 off to the right. It's elevated up there on the bridge, viaduct, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, library right there on the left, and Road Community College is now on your left. And so I guess they aren't connected. I thought they were for some reason, but this is the Road Community College building on the left. And so this is Main Street that we're turning on to right now. And we will give you the little tour here. There's Beer Works, which is a really cool place with all sorts of craft beer, and Jackson Creek Pizza right there. There's public parking actually on the, there's a parking garage over on the right there, a half a block over. But a lot of different just shops and stuff down here on Main Street. And they've done a nice job, I think, of kind of updating some of Main Street. Like, it's a little confusing now with all these, this bike lane over on the left that you can see. But people have managed to figure it out. This was all a 3-lane, and they took it down to 2 with parking. And what you'll see here in a second is the city, county offices here in Jackson County on the left, courthouse and that kind of stuff. So we'll go up here, we'll take a left in a moment, and you'll be able to see a better view of that. And we're gonna take a turn, take a left here on Oakdale, and you'll be able to see the county offices as you make a turn. A nice newer playground here on the left. I don't know if you were able to see that, but really kind of a nice job of how they developed that. Looks really nice. And so you got City Hall on the right there, and that's kind of where all the county offices and city offices and all that stuff were. We got more county buildings on the right, Jackson County stuff, and we're gonna make our way back down to Riverside and continue on that away, and then we'll jump over to Biddle. I'll show you what that looks over there on the other side of this, I guess you could say, on the other side of I-5. So there's, speaking of I-5, there's 2 main exits for Medford, South Medford and I guess you could call it North Medford. But like I was mentioning, Medford is fastest growing city in all of Oregon, if you can believe that. And so there's a little bit of an asterisk next to that, which is, fastest growing city over, I think it's over 15,000. There's some cities that are smaller than that grew at a faster rate. Here's the Lithia building on the left here in the Commons. And so there's Starbucks down there and some good restaurants kind of behind it. It's Common Block Brewing, which is really cool. Nice, fun place. Great food. That's what you can see there with that big outdoor tent area. But anyways, yeah, 3% on the growth rate in Medford puts it at over 90,000 people, which is great. A lot of growth going on here. And if you look at the population of, Medford, Grants Pass, all of Jackson County, Josephine County, you end up with about 300,000 people. So Medford obviously makes up, a great big portion of that, just in, Medford proper, but it's hard to even tell, where Medford stops and, Central Point begins, let's say. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna continue on back all the way to Crater Lake Highway, just to give you like the full frame of reference of where we're at. Like, we could cut over onto one of the other streets here to get over to Biddle, but I want to go back to Crater Lake Highway to show you, the full thing. Give you the full frame of reference here. A lot of car lots in the area here, and they've kind of moved some of these like over onto Crater Lake Highway, and done some different things with the properties there, like built different buildings and those sorts of things. But you've got big Toyota dealership here on the right, and then in the distance up there is the Rogue Valley Mall, and they have a lot of stores in there. Macy's is in there, Kohl's on the other side, Bed Bath & Beyond. Another fun little thing to check out when you're in Medford is this little teeny tiny restaurant up here that I hope you're able to get a peek at. This little green and red one on the left. It's called Luigi's Sandwiches, and it's awesome. I haven't been there in a while either, but I'll tell you, like, last time I was there, it's awesome. It's like Italian style sandwiches, hot sandwiches. They're really good. So it's worth checking out. Just a tiny little hole in the wall right there on the left. Okay, so now we are getting back to the intersection here where Riverside runs into Crater Lake Highway. We're gonna take a right onto Crater Lake Highway, and this is that big intersection that we started at. But the mountain over in the distance is Roxanne Peak, and that's kind of East Medford over there in the hills, if you're able to see any of that, which is cool, like super popular area, and beautiful homes and great hiking up there on Roxanne. There's a trail that goes all the way around that peak, and you can hike around that and everything. So before I forget though, Crater Lake Highway here, if you were to continue on, there's all sorts of additional shopping and stuff. Up here on the right is Fred Meyer, great store for all sorts of different stuff, groceries, and kind of all-in-one type place. And if you were to continue on to the, even further up there to the left, Sportsman's Warehouse, all sorts of good stuff down there. If you were to continue on from there, this goes eventually into White City, Eagle Point, and out that way, and eventually all the way up to Crater Lake, if you can believe it or not, what it's actually named after. So we're coming up on Biddle Road here, and we are now officially on the other side of I-5. So Biddle is not one way, so I mean you can go on either side of it, but it's kind of just a kind of main thoroughfare here with a lot of streets taken off to the left, which go up towards East Medford. So you'll see those same streets, McAndrews and Jackson, and those that we talked about previously. Those all go through and under I-5 and over towards East Medford. But a little bit more development kind of has happened over on this side of town, and I don't know that I'd call this downtown per se, but a little more development's kind of gone on over here, and like buildings getting renovated and updated and those sorts of things. So like this People's Bank building up here on the left, big brick building, is newer and nice pretty building. They'll also just past it is the new, Barnes & Noble first, and then Market of Choice up here on the left. And that's awesome, man. It's a really good store. It's like kind of a smaller version of a Whole Foods. If you're not familiar with Market of Choice, they're great stores, lots of really good stuff, very, very similar to a Whole Foods, so, in my opinion. But different shopping centers here. Bear Creek Shopping Center on the left. And what do you got in there? Weimar, Boot Barn, Dollar Tree, kind of all sorts of just different stores there. One thing to be aware of if you're driving down Biddle is these lights. Generally, you want to be on the right-hand lane because like that light just turned yellow, and this one, that's a perfect example. You want to be in the right-hand lane so that you can avoid all these lights and just keep on driving because they just stay good on the right-hand side. So, a little insider tip for you. But again, this is kind of continues on. You got this walking bike path on the right here, and again these streets, Stevens and stuff, they just kind of take off up there towards East Medford. And where we're gonna end our tour is here on Jackson. We're gonna turn on Jackson Street here, and you've got the shopping center on the left here is where you have Tinseltown, which is the big movie theater. You got Red Robin, Tap and Vine restaurant, which is really good. Cold Stone Creamery. Like there's a lot of cool stuff in there. They just did a big facelift and stuff in there. Just TJ Maxx is in there, some different things, and then you got Hawthorne Park over here across the street from it all. So big city park that they just spent a ton of money redoing the whole playground over there. So pretty nice playground setup for the kids and all that sort of stuff. So if you were to take a right here, it would just take you right back into the downtown area where we just were. So anyways, that is where we're gonna end it. I would turn left into the shopping center here, but it's blocked off obviously, so it's called the Village. That's what they call it.
Number one is obviously gotta be the climate, okay? It's one of the top reasons people reach out to me. They're thinking, hey, you know what? I live over in the desert, or I live up in the rainforest by Portland or Seattle, and I just cannot take it anymore. I need to get out. And that's what we have here. We have a nice mild climate in Medford, Oregon, okay? Warm summers, cool winters, not too warm, not too cool. It's just right. We'll break 100 in the summer sometimes, and we'll maybe even get down into the 20s or teens in the winters, but it's pretty rare to get outside of that range. But what you're really gonna love about the weather in Medford, Oregon is the approximately 200 days of sunshine that we get per year, giving you a lot of opportunity to get out there and walk the dog or play around in your garden or work on your suntan or whatever it is that you like to do in the sunshine, because you are going to have a lot of it to deal with, unlike the rest of the state up north, which doesn't get so much. Number 2 is the cost of living, and that is quite possibly the second most common reason people reach out to me about relocating to Medford, Oregon, or one of our other beautiful cities around Southern Oregon. People living in other states like California are just tired of getting robbed with ridiculous housing prices, high income taxes, and then when you actually do get, a little portion of your earnings called your paycheck, you then have to pay another 7.25% on everything that you buy with that paycheck. No thank you. Come on up to the promised land, but just don't bring those policies with you, because we don't like that here. We want to have an affordable cost of living. Okay, we like it. I help people all the time move to Oregon from other states where they're, selling their house for top dollar and paying cash for a home here because it is so much more affordable. Okay, you can get a pretty nice newer home in the mid 400s. Okay, they're pretty common around here. And I know the locals are gonna freak out in the comments about that one. How dare you say the housing is cheap? Okay, I can't even afford my rent. Listen, it is cheap compared to places like LA or the Bay Area or Seattle or even Portland and Bend in our own state. I agree though, it is not cheap compared to maybe what you started, renting your apartment for 20 years ago, or what you bought your house for 20 years ago. It is not cheap compared to that, but what is, right? Give me a little bit of a break here. Number 3 is my favorite, which is the outdoor recreation. Okay, this place is like Disneyland for outdoor enthusiasts, right? Minus the long lines and the $20 corn dogs. But my point is, there is a lot to do in Medford, Oregon that gets you outside, like hiking. Okay, and I did a really cool video about hiking the Table Rock trails that you're gonna want to check out. It was pretty fun. Check it out. But there's also whitewater rafting and skiing and snowboarding and camping and hunting and fishing, which I actually just did a couple weeks ago with a friend of mine. We went winter steelhead fishing. I caught 2 fish, he caught 1 fish, just saying. You know who you are. But the outdoor recreational opportunities here are absolutely endless. So endless, in fact, that we had to make another reason why I love Medford, Oregon, and call it sports, which is number 4, okay? The abundance of sports is the 4th reason why I love Medford, Oregon, because there's just so many things to do, okay? So many options for mountain biking or road biking or golfing or pickleball or running. I don't think running is a sport, but let's just keep it in there anyways. In addition to all the various city league sports that you can do, like softball, basketball, volleyball, and on and on and on. The sports are just endless. But maybe you just want to be a sports spectator instead of a sports participant, and that's okay too, because we still got you covered in that case, because we have Southern Oregon University, which has all sorts of athletics, football, baseball, basketball, softball, all sorts of stuff there to go over and watch over in Ashland, plus all of the semi-pro teams that we have here in Southern Oregon, like the Medford Rogues baseball team, and there's a semi-pro football team and a hockey team and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think the sports is definitely worthy of an entirely separate reason why I love Medford, Oregon. Number 5 is the most important, actually the 3 most important things about real estate, which is location, 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 okay? And the location of Medford, Oregon is phenomenal. We are located in Southern Oregon, about 25 miles north of the California border, surrounded by national forests, national parks, and more beauty than you can shake a stick at. Interstate 5 runs north-south right through the city of Medford, and then Highway 99 is nearby, and that could take you west over to the Oregon coast. Highway 140 is nearby, and that could take you east over into eastern Oregon into the high desert. And so there is a lot of options to get out in any direction and go anywhere. Within 3 hours, you could be eating some fresh clam chowder or tearing up the sand dunes at the Oregon coast. In 4 hours, you could be up in Portland if there's, for some reason, you want to visit up there. In 5 hours, you could be in the Bay Area, or in the same amount of time, you can go to a much nicer route and go to Lake Tahoe, which is absolutely gorgeous. As a matter of fact, I actually just did that last weekend with my family and some friends, and it was incredible. We went snow skiing with the kids and enjoyed some of the beautiful scenery and fresh mountain air. We actually go do that a number of times a year because it is such an easy drive. It's 5 hours, beautiful drive that takes you right by Mount Shasta, Lassen National Park, and up into the Sierra Nevadas into Lake Tahoe, which, as a fun little fact, is where my wife and I got married. Moving on to number 6 is the medical scene. Okay, I'm a pretty big believer that medical kind of just sucks no matter where you're at, but here in Medford, it really doesn't suck so much, right? So Let me explain what's going on here. We have the Asante Health System here in Medford, Oregon, which is a top 15 health system in the country, and it has been for many years, 10 I believe, okay? And this includes the Rogue Regional Medical Center, which is a regional medical center that serves around 600,000 people across Southern Oregon and Northern California. They're really well known for their cardiac care, but they offer all sorts of the major things that most people are concerned about. As a matter of fact, they just opened up a new 323,000 square foot building with added capacity and new technology, a children's hospital, a birthing center, and the region's only level 3 neonatal intensive care unit, which is pretty incredible. So there's definitely a lot to love there, and that is why the medical is number 6 on this list. But let's move on to number 7 now, and that is that it is a really great retirement area. Okay, so we talked about the things that are important to most retirees, right? The climate, there's a lot of things to do outside, the cost of living is good, and the medical scene is good. So that pretty much checks all the boxes for people looking to retire. So again, go ahead and reach on out if that's you. You can go ahead and hit that pause button, and I'll still be here waiting. Welcome back, and I actually hear you over there. You're thinking, hey, you know what? I like the outdoors, but I need a little bit of culture in my life. So that brings us to number 8, and that is, in fact, the culture. So believe it or not, little old Podunk, Southern Oregon actually has some pretty good culture going for us down here. Ashland is kind of the hot spot for that, being a college town and all. But the area overall has some really good stuff going on to fill in that cultural need that you've got. For example, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, okay? Go check out a world-class play there, or a performance at the Criterion Theater, or a concert at the Brit Festival. And if that's not enough, there are countless art galleries that line the streets of Jacksonville and Ashland. We also have a really incredible wine scene here in Southern Oregon with tons of different vineyards and tasting rooms scattered all across Southern Oregon. And really, what's more culture than sipping on a nice glass of local wine, soaking in the natural beauty of the area, right? Number 9, let's shake things up a little bit with politics. What? He's talking about politics? Yeah, because here's the deal. One of the things that I love about Medford, Oregon is the fact that it's not some hyper-political area, okay? It's not a sanctuary city, and you're also not going to see the KKK marching down Main Street, okay? Like anywhere, there's some hyper-political people, but for the most part, the locals here don't ask about your politics, they don't preach about theirs, which means that everyone pretty much feels welcome. Jackson County as a whole is definitely conservative leaning, but it's really not by much. Just over 50% voted Republican in the last election, to about 47% voting Democrat. And that's pretty even. The big contrast comes in the difference between Ashland, which is very liberal, and rural Jackson County, which is very conservative. So if you're more into that granola, tofu, Tesla crowd, then we have some places that you're gonna really love. But that's really what I think makes this area so awesome, is that there's something for everyone here, and that no matter which side you're on, I don't think you're gonna feel like an outcast. Number 10 is the neighborhoods. What? The neighborhoods? Listen, okay, let me explain. There are some super cool neighborhoods in Medford, Oregon, okay, in the surrounding areas. And again, something for everyone, really. So East Medford, Eagle Trace, Saddle Ridge, that whole area on the east side of town, it is more of the high-end, kind of expensive part of town, as is Jacksonville and Ashland. But if we're focused on Medford, those are some pretty high-end parts of Medford. West Medford, on the other hand, is more of the lower-priced, budget-friendly part of town, okay? Then you have some areas that have a little bit of both, like the Bear Creek area or Old East Medford, where you have some nice, big, beautiful, old, original homes on some big, beautiful lots, mixed in with some places that could use a little bit of updating. And then there's North Medford in the area around Springbrook and Cedar Links, which has been seeing a ton of development and growth lately, as is South Medford in the area towards Kings Highway and the South Stage Road. Number 11 is the educational opportunities. And before we dive into this one, I want to give a quick shout out to my kids who are proud students of Grace Christian School, which I'll explain more about here in just a second. But Jackson County overall has 9 school districts, if you can believe it, okay? There's 24 public elementary schools, 14 middle schools, and 9 public high schools, and that's in addition to the charter schools and private schools. So there are a lot of options. No matter what your situation is, no matter what your views are, you will find some options to fit your tastes. If you want a public school and all the pros and cons that go along with that, great, you have options there. If you want a private school and all the pros and very expensive cons that go along with that, Great, you've got options there. I get asked this question a lot though about schools and what do I believe and what do I think about that in my own experience in Southern Oregon. So let me explain that, okay? So I personally went to the public school from kindergarten through 12th grade here in the Real River School District, which is one of the 9 in Jackson County, and I loved it. I had a really, really great experience. But my wife and I have elected to send our kids to Grace Christian, which is a private elementary and middle school that's affiliated with the Cascade Christian High School. And we did it because it aligns with our beliefs and frankly because of the safety and security. You see, it's just a different world now than it was back when I was in school. Back then, we didn't have to worry about boys going into girls' bathrooms or girls going into boys' bathrooms or any of that sort of stuff. And that's something that we want to ensure our kids don't have to worry about either. So that's part of the reason that we chose what we chose. And if you have different beliefs than that, that's great. There's a lot of options out there, and I'm sure you'll be able to find one that fits your beliefs for your family. In addition to all the K through 12 options, there's also Rogue Community College and Southern Oregon University that provide some great options for higher education. Moving on, the 12th reason why I love Medford, Oregon is it's just fun. With all the good weather, the people of Medford, Oregon have done a really good job of creating fun things to do. For example, the Rogue X Community Complex, which is a brand new aquatics and event center. It's really, really awesome. There's also the Family Fun Center nearby in Central Point that has an arcade and mini golf and batting cages and go-karts. There's Lava Lanes, which is a bowling alley that's really amazing. There's tons and tons of parks and bike paths and lots of fun events throughout the year, like the Art and Bloom Festival or the Pear Blossom Festival or the Craft Brew Festival. There's car shows and cruises. There's the Sportsman's Outdoor Show. There's the home show at the expo. There's concerts. There's so many more things to do and a lot of fun to have. Number 13, in my opinion, it is a great place to raise a family, okay? We have low crime rates, nice parks, great school choices. There's loads of things to do outside like we discussed, so you don't have to worry about your kids staying inside all day staring at the iPad screen. Tell them, get out there, go for a hike, go biking, go build a fort, go play in the woods, and go get poison oak. Don't do that, just kidding. But as a parent, that's one of my truly favorite things about this area is that there's just so many fun things to go do outside with the kids and get them away from the screens and get them away from the video games and all this stuff of online. One of our favorite things to do is just pile the family into the Jeep and go for a drive up into the mountains, okay? If there's snow, we'll bring the sleds and some cocoa. If it's hot out, we'll bring some swimsuits and try to find a cool swimming hole. We like to go around and see if we can find some deer or wildlife and just explore new places that we haven't been in. It's just a lot of fun to be outdoors together, and I think that's something that if you move to Medford, Oregon, you will enjoy as well, I'm sure. Number 14 is the growth, okay? Medford, Oregon is a fast growing city. As a matter of fact, it is the fastest growing city in Oregon of any real size, okay? It grew by about 3% and just eclipsed the 90,000 resident mark. But Southern Oregon as a whole has about 312,000 residents, so this makes Medford definitely the biggest city in the area. But that growth has brought in companies like Amazon, who has building a warehouse in the Central Point area. It's brought in REI and Dick's Sporting Goods, who've opened up shop here in the last 10 years. And more recently, In-N-Out and Chick-fil-A and other big national and big regional brands that have decided to open up locations around Medford, Oregon. At number 15, last but absolutely not least, is an international airport. Now, I'm not sure why it's called an international airport without actually having any real international passenger flights, but that is what it's called. So if you happen to know the answer to that, why don't you leave that down in the comment section down below, because I've been dying to know it. I've been curious for literally like the last 15 years. So if somebody could solve that mystery, I would greatly appreciate it. Anyways, the Medford Airport flies to several major hubs like Seattle, Portland, Denver, LA, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, and from those places you can connect to pretty much anywhere in the world. We also have direct flights to Las Vegas and Phoenix if you want to get out there and have some fun out in the desert. And the best thing about this big international airport is that you don't have to show up hours before your flight like you would at a bigger airport like LAX or Seattle or something like that, okay? I honestly can't remember the last time it took more than 5 minutes for me to get through security. So if you're from one of those big areas with a big airport, you're gonna love the Medford International Airport. Pro number one is the weather, and this is something we are just known for in Southern Oregon. Even in Grants Pass, there's a sign across the street that says it's the climate, been there forever, and it's the truth. We have a really, really fantastic climate here with nice warm summers, you could even call them hot summers, and nice cool winters, okay? We get normal days in the summers are in the 90s, and we'll get into the hundreds every now and then, and in the winters and normal days in the 40s, and we'll probably get into the 30s and 20s even as the lows, but relatively mild in those cases. We're not really getting the big extremes like you're going to find in other areas of, you know, the desert and stuff like that, where you get really, really hot and really, really cold. But we also don't get a lot of rain, just 20 inches of rain per year here in Southern Oregon, and just a few inches of snow every single year, and that typically melts off in the same day. So definitely not going to be a place where you have to worry about shoveling snow or anything like that, or driving in the snow if you don't like that. It's very rare, only a few days of snow a year, and really a few inches. We also get around 200 days of sunshine here, which is fantastic. There's a lot of great things that come with that, and we'll talk more about that here momentarily. But one of the not so great things that comes with that is that it can lead to some smoke, and we're going to get into that later, because believe it or not, smoke is not something that is a pro. It's not in this section yet. So stay tuned for that, because we'll talk about that momentarily. Moving on. Well, let's hold on for just 1 second, because I think I got ahead of myself here and I didn't even introduce myself to you, okay? I'm Brian Simmons with eXp Realty, and if there's anything I can do to help you learn, buy, or list real estate here in Southern Oregon, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can call or text me at the information right here, 541-954-7758, or my email address is down in the description of this video, and you can shoot me an email that way if you prefer. Now, let's continue. Pro number two is the cost of living. So the cost of living in Medford, Oregon is about 6% above the national average. And when you think about that in comparison to the rest of Oregon, Oregon as a state overall is about 14% above the national average. And some of the other cities in Oregon, like Eugene, are about 6% above the national average. Bend is about 27% above. Portland is about 30% above. And you also have some areas like Grants Pass and Oregon Coast that are actually right around the national average or even below it. So we kind of have a whole wide variety, but overall about 14% above the national average for the state, and Medford's on the lower end of that at only 6% above the national average. I want to share how that compares to some other areas around the West Coast, just for a point of reference, because you have areas like the Bay Area. San Francisco is 145% above the national average. San Jose is 130%, LA 62%, and Seattle is 58% above the national average. So if you're in one of those areas, you're spending 60 to 150% above the national average, going down to 6% above it really is a pretty solid saving. I actually made a video all about how much does it cost to live in Southern Oregon, and I go into even more detail about the cost of living and give you better examples with housing and all those sorts of things. So be sure to check that one out next if you'd like to. Pro number three is things to do outside. There's just so much to do outdoors here in Southern Oregon, from hiking and biking to golf and hunting and fishing and kayaking and rafting and boating and camping and frisbee golf and drinking wine in a vineyard. Okay, that's outside. That's an outside activity, you know. Gardening, parks, outdoor concerts. I don't know what else. Did I miss something there? There's so much to do outside. If you like the outdoors, this is your spot, okay? If you like the indoors, there's also plenty to do indoors. We have all sorts of art galleries. We have the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. We have the Criterion Theater. There's all sorts of places like that to watch plays or performances. There's wine tasting indoors if you'd like to sit inside and taste some wine. There's breweries, there's shopping, movie theaters, bowling, all sorts of stuff. But that's really a big theme of the community and the culture around here is the outdoor activity. People just love being outside and enjoying the weather. And as a matter of fact, last weekend was Easter weekend. I went out to the city of Central Point with my family, and they had a huge Easter egg hunt that was put on by the city of Central Point that was so much fun and beautiful weather. And it's just a great example of the things that are available to do out here as a family, or to go out and just enjoy, you know, and see everybody else really enjoying their time. But really it was just a lot of fun and a good example of the types of events that are available around here in the various communities that you can take advantage of with the great weather and the beauty outdoors. Don't worry though, we are almost to the bad stuff. I know that's what you're sitting there waiting on, okay? And there could be a decent chance that once we get into that bad stuff, the cons on this list, there might be a deal breaker in there that makes you want to just scratch Medford, Oregon right off your list. So bear with me for just another second, because the next information that we're going to get into on the pro side of things may actually save your life. That's because pro number 4 is the medical scene here in Southern Oregon. Okay, we have top-notch healthcare available, which is featuring the Asante Health System, which is a top 15 hospital system in the entire country and has been for the last 10 years or so. Okay, we have 4 hospitals in Southern Oregon, from Ashland to 2 of them in Medford to another one in Grants Pass, 4 of them across the area, including the largest, which is Asante's Rogue Regional Medical Center, which is in Medford. It just underwent a massive renovation and added a huge amount of square footage with all sorts of new facilities and technology and great stuff. But it's a level 2 trauma center there, and it's a regional hospital that serves over 600,000 people across Southern Oregon and Northern California, all the way to the coast and even over into Eastern Oregon in parts. So lots of great things happening at the medical scene here, including some really, really good specialists like those at Southern Oregon Orthopedics and the Medical Eye Center, which I've personally had really good experiences with. And there's many, many others that are very well respected and renowned specialists across Southern Oregon. So the medical scene here is very positive. It's definitely one of our strengths, and it creates a lot of jobs. So if you are somebody who works in the medical field, there is a lot of opportunity here for those types of jobs as well. Pro number 5, and our last pro, is the location. Okay, so I would challenge you to find a place in the Western United States that has the same combination of good weather, low cost of living, outdoor recreational opportunities, and convenient location. Okay, I'll wait. Go ahead. I'm actually not going to wait, because if I was waiting, we'd be here for a very long time, because I've already done the research, and spoiler alert, it really doesn't exist. There's nowhere else that I know of that has that combination of things that I just mentioned, okay? But what's so good about our actual location here, right? So we have the natural beauty with the mountains and the rivers and the lakes and all those sorts of things, which is great. So that creates a really nice environment visually to look at, and creates a lot of things to do. But we also are fortunate enough to not be part of the coastal range and that whole side of things, which is just too wet, right? But we're also not in the high desert area, which is just too dry. Not enough rain, a lot of dust, a lot of wind and stuff over there. Another great thing about our location is it's just so easy to get to other parts of the Northwest, all right? So you could hop in the car and you could be over at the Oregon coast in just a couple hours. You could be eating clam chowder and fish and chips in no time, or you could go the other direction. You could be over in the high desert in Eastern Oregon in a few hours, going over there hunting or do camping, whatever you like to do over there. You could be in Eugene in a few hours, Portland in 4 hours, down to the Bay Area in 5 or 6 hours, Sacramento, you can be in Tahoe 5 or 6 hours. There's so many places that you can be in just a short, a half a day's drive. And if you want to go further than that, we have our airport here, which has a lot of different flights to big hubs like Seattle and Salt Lake City and Los Angeles and San Francisco and Portland and Phoenix, and all sorts of options there. So it's very easy to get away if you'd like to get out of here, and that's one of the great things about our location. Now, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff, okay? The cons, the bad, the ugly, the secrets of Southern Oregon that nobody wants to tell you because they don't want to scare you away. So are you ready? Con number 1, first and foremost, is the growth. Okay, Southern Oregon, Medford in particular, is growing like crazy. It is one of the fastest growing cities in Oregon, really the fastest of any substantial size, growing faster than Bend, Eugene, Portland, Salem, Corvallis, all those cities. Medford is outpacing all of them. With that comes construction, comes infrastructure improvement, comes congestion, could possibly lead to changes in the culture, okay? But that seems like that probably would take a little bit more time. So you might find though that maybe your favorite swimming hole might have somebody else at it. Maybe your favorite fishing hole might be taken by somebody before you get there, okay? Your favorite camping spot might require you to reserve it a couple more days in advance, okay? Whatever the case is, growth can be a turnoff to some people. It can also be viewed as very, very positive for the other things that it creates, like jobs and just overall, growth in an area. But the question that I want you to think about is, why is it growing so fast? And it's because The secret is out. It's because of that combination of things that we just talked about, being the great location and the low cost of living and the really incredible weather. All those things are attractive to people, and it's growing for a good reason. So keep that in mind. Con number 2 is the politics. And what I mean by the politics is that it is a conservative part of the state, but in a very, very liberal state. So I don't know what your personal politics are, but this is something that you're going to hear from the locals, okay? And the title of this video is the real pros and cons from a local. So I need to tell you what the locals are actually going to say. And a lot of the locals here are conservatives, and so they're going to say that the con is that you are in a very liberal state. So that's just something that is worth knowing. A lot of the liberal drive here in Oregon is because of the bigger cities up north, Portland, Salem, Eugene, those types of places. And what that creates is just a feeling for a lot of the rest of the state, Southern Oregon and Eastern Oregon, where you kind of like don't have much of a voice at the state level, okay? And so that can make people feel like maybe their vote doesn't count or those sorts of things. But it's really kind of limited to the state level, if I'm being honest, because when you look at the Jackson County government, it has 3 Republican commissioners, okay? And the various cities around the area and other local, small governments, they're largely the same, very conservative based, and the exception to that is the city of Ashland, which is very liberal. So that's one of the things that a lot of people could look at as a con, but could also very easily be looked at as a pro if you were to think about it from the standpoint of there's really a place for everyone here in Southern Oregon, okay? Whether you're very conservative, you'd feel comfortable pretty much anywhere. If you're very liberal, there's places like Ashland where you'd feel very, very at home with a lot of like-minded people. So you can view that as pro, con, whichever way you'd like to, but since, like I said, this is a locals viewpoint, I'm going to give you the locals saying, which is that this would be a con. Now that I've violated pretty much every rule about talking politics and business, let's move on. But really, where else are you going to get the truth like that? Okay, and the next one that I'm going to tell you about, though, is one that I feel like can actually be that deal breaker for some people, and that is con number 3, which is the fog and the smoke, okay? And if I'm being honest with you, the fog is really just a non-issue in my opinion, okay? I've heard a lot of people complain that there's some foggy days, but in reality, I don't know where you could go where you're not going to have some foggy days. So if you are afraid of having a little bit of fog here or there, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe move to the desert or something. I don't know if they still have fog in the desert, but that seems like a place where you'd have minimal fog. But we really don't have that much fog. It's nothing like the Bay Area or anywhere like that. So I don't want to even really go into a lot of detail on fog because I don't think it's really that much of a problem. Smoke, on the other hand, that is the thing that we get a lot of people talking about in the comments section, and in addition to the next thing that I'm going to tell you about. But smoke is definitely something that you need to be talking about and thinking about, okay? Smoke obviously comes from wildfires, and wildfires happen, right? They happen across Northern California, they happen across Southern Oregon, and the smoke gets carried by wind, and a lot of the times in the summers, we get a lightning event that comes through Northern California or Southern Oregon in those big national forests down there, the Sixes, the Siskiyou, all those different areas in the coastal range. They get a dry lightning storm that comes through, starts a lot of fires, and then we have these winds that kind of come from the southwest and can blow that smoke right up into Southern Oregon. And that can happen, and it can also not happen. All right, there's been plenty of years where it has not happened. Plenty of years where we've been blessed with wonderful amounts of sunshine and are able to get out there in the nice, clean, clear mountain air and have a wonderful summer with really minimal to no smoke at all. But again, there's times where it can be the opposite of that, where we can have weeks of pretty socked in smoke, and it's pretty miserable when that happens. The air quality can be pretty poor, and that does happen from time to time. But I want to be very clear that it's not something that happens all of the time, okay? And so when you see those studies that say, Cave Junction, Oregon had the worst air quality in the United States, sure, okay, they probably did last year because there was a huge fire that was, 10 miles away from the town or 20 miles away from the town, and all the smoke just sat there in that valley. So yeah, like they had really, really poor air quality for that summer. But if you look at what did they have over the winter, what did they have, the year before, like those types of things, I think that's the context that's missing. So just be aware that smoke is not something that happens every single year. It's not a guarantee. And the nice thing about it is it's easy to get away from. Okay, if you don't like the smoke, you can look at a map of where the smoke is coming in from, All right, you can see that they even put it on the Weather Channel for you. You can see that, and you can go get away from it. So maybe you go over to the coast and you go get some of that clam chowder or fish and chips, or maybe you go to Eastern Oregon and get out of the way up there. Maybe you go up into the mountains and go pick some huckleberries. Whatever it is, you can get away from the smoke, okay? And so that is a really, really nice thing about it, is it's very easy and fun to get away from, because you can even go over to the dunes, go ride quads, go camping, go do something, go make it a fun weekend, right? And that's one of the things, like I said previously, we're fortunate enough to have that as an option here to be able to go get away to so many nice places. Con number 4 is the cannabis industry, okay? And that is one of the downsides of having all this great sunshine, is that it apparently is really good for growing pot, okay? And that's what has happened a lot in the past. The cannabis industry, fortunately, in my opinion, really started tanking right around 2020, 2021. It really went downhill a lot, okay? But prior to that, it was really bad. There was a lot of cannabis growing going on, pot, hemp, whatever, was being grown all over the place. It seemed like pretty much any property that had some flat ground and water rights, and a lot of the people didn't even care if it had water rights or not. They would just do it anyways. But that was part of the problem. Okay, people weren't following the rules. People were creating messes. They were creating these, places that just were very unsightly. It was bringing in a lot of, sketchy people, and all of those things were just not, great for the area. Okay, but that did exist without a doubt. Like, that was definitely a problem, and it was creating, smells and all those sorts of things, especially during the harvest time, where you drive down the road, it smells like you ran over a skunk every 5 seconds. But the problem is not as bad as it was, okay? Like, it is nowhere near the levels that it was, in the 2010s, where it was just really like in the heyday. Nowadays, there's still some grows out there. There's still some people doing it, but the prices of that have just gone through the floor, and so it's really hard for anybody to even make a profit on it anymore, and so you just don't see it hardly anywhere, as much as you did back in those days. But it is something that you should be aware of, because you're going to see it in the comment section. There's going to be people saying, oh, the cannabis industry, people are going hemp, growing marijuana, whatever it is, growing all of this stuff, and anyways, it's not the problem it was. Con number 5, and this is the last one, the big one that you're going to see commented about more than anything else, and it is the homelessness, okay? So Oregon in general has a pretty high homeless population. When you look at it, per capita across the state, it's pretty high, okay? And Medford definitely has a noticeable homeless population as well, okay? We're right on Interstate 5, and the state has done some really stupid things over the years to create a situation with really, a lack of affordable housing for the poor, a lack of treatment options for people who need mental health care or who need, drug addiction treatment. And then the state really doubled down on the stupidity with Measure 110, which legalized drug possession. Okay, which I have an important update about here in a second. But they really just created this perfect storm for creating and attracting homeless people. Okay, and it's a very, very sad story, and an absolute miserable failure in an experiment of playing with ultra progressive policies like legalizing hard drugs. But there is a silver lining to all this, and that is that the problem is being addressed. Okay, so the Southern Oregon Homeless Summit just recently put out a bit of information that said that the homeless population in Jackson County is actually declining, and I think it said it was down about 10%. So that's great news in my opinion. In addition to that, even more recently, the governor just signed a bill which is going to recriminalize drug possession in Oregon. So essentially, offenders will be given a choice of jail for 6 months or a drug treatment program, or options to that effect. But we're really, viewing that as a positive thing. Folks are very optimistic that that's going to have a big impact on the homelessness issue, in addition to another bill that the governor just signed that is providing funding for affordable housing projects that are aimed at helping the homeless population. So I'm really, really optimistic about those things. I'm happy to see those things happening. And I think that, a year down the road, or 2 years or 5 years, you're going to see an environment here that's going to look drastically improved versus what you're going to see out there today, or even last year or the year before. So definitely optimistic on those things there. what is the top reason people should not move to Medford, Oregon? Of course, naturally, you want to learn the top reasons people should never move to Medford, Oregon, and I'm going to tell you what I personally think about that. But first, I want to just blast through the reasons that you've probably already seen in the comments of my videos, and that's homelessness, the pot industry, drugs, Medford, and conservatives. Okay, you're 4 out of the 9 right there. Bam, nailed them. You'll read about those in the comments. So let's just get those easy ones out of the way real quick, and we'll start with talking about homelessness for a quick second, okay? And so, yeah, there are homeless people in Southern Oregon, and if that's an issue for you, then you probably shouldn't move here, okay? But here's what I would say about the homelessness in Southern Oregon is that it pales in comparison to the other major cities of Oregon like Eugene, Portland, and Salem, and the situation here is actually improving, all right? The Southern Oregon Homeless Summit just recently concluded that Jackson County actually saw its homeless population decrease by nearly 10%. And that's progress. And more progress should be happening soon with the recent passing of a couple new Senate bills in Oregon that will provide additional funding for housing and community services, rental assistance, and all sorts of things intended to help with the homelessness and affordable housing issues that we've been facing. So now let's shift and talk about that drug situation, because this one gets me really, really excited. So Oregon legalized everything with Measure 110. You could be as high as a kite, smoking crack, shooting up heroin, doing whatever you want to do, and there wasn't a thing the police could do about it unless they saw you actively taking or dealing the drugs, okay? Possession was legal, and it was probably the dumbest thing I have ever seen a state do, and thankfully it was realized pretty quickly, and Measure 110 was just recently reversed, okay? And so possessing drugs is now illegal again in Oregon, and people who break that law will be taken to jail or given the option to get treatment, okay? And that's the plan, at least as I understand it. So this will address the concerns that you read in the comments about, you know, Medford and druggies everywhere and all that kind of stuff, which I think was pretty dramatic to begin with, but whatever. In addition to all that progress, we've also had a good streak of luck here in Southern Oregon, and that's because the marijuana and cannabis industry absolutely tanked, okay? It was flying super high, no pun intended, back around 2019 or so, and that seemed like that's when things really peaked in that industry, where every rural property felt like it had some sort of pot plant growing on it, and anything with water rights had, you know, a ton of pot plants and was selling for over $1 million. Back then, the smell of pot was in the air intensely in the spring and really, really intense in the fall during the harvest season, which kind of sucked, you know, and the kids would be in the backseat of the car like, Dad, what's that smell? Oh, it's just another skunk, buddy. 5th one today. On top of all that, all the grow properties were rarely kept in good shape. They put up these big ugly fences with tarps and all sorts of stuff to block the view of their crops. They left trash everywhere. They didn't bring in the best quality of people to the neighborhood. And let me say this, okay? I know some really good people that worked on pot grows. They're nice people, but I'm not talking about the hippies here, okay? I'm talking about the cartel. And the cartel doesn't make a good neighbor. They are not nice people, and they do not add value to the community. And thankfully, the price of cannabis has plummeted over the last few years. The market got completely flooded with every hippie and cartel member spinning up their own farm, and the next thing you know, you can barely give this stuff away, okay? So with that luck and with some major initiatives from the law enforcement at the local, state, and national levels, they really went to work to drive that industry down a lot, okay? And so what was a problem 5 or so years ago is honestly barely noticeable now in comparison. Awesome, but what about the conservatives, okay? I did mention that too, right? Yes, and I was hoping you might have forgot about that because I really don't like talking about politics here because it can tend to get a little divisive, if you know what I mean. So here's what I'll say about that, okay? Southern Oregon is primarily conservative, okay? There are Trump signs, you're gonna see MAGA flags, you're gonna see Let's Go Brandon stickers, and all that sort of stuff, okay? And so if that triggers you, you might wanna find a different place to live, like Ashland, Oregon, which is also in Southern Oregon and happens to be very liberal, okay? One thing to note is that Southern Oregon is actually pretty balanced, okay? With just over 50% of the people voting Republican in the 2020 election. But let me give you a little insider tip here, okay? Southern Oregon is full of people who want to just live and let live, okay? You do you and I'll do me and we'll all just get along just fine, all right? But when you start to take your ideas and force your ideas and your beliefs on others, that's where things start to heat up. So if you're from somewhere else and you want to move to Southern Oregon, my advice to you is simply don't try to change Southern Oregon by bringing the policies of the area that you're leaving, okay? We like it how it is here. We think you'll like it how it is here. So why don't you just try it, just experience it and embrace it. Now, I told you that I would share my personal opinion on what I think the biggest reason is that you should not move to Medford, Oregon, and I will come clean on that right now and deliver. And I'll tell you that the number one reason for me, in my mind, is that it is still very much a small town in a lot of ways, okay? We're talking about Medford, Oregon, or Southern Oregon in general. And that's number 5 on the list. So if you're from a big city and you're not ready for that small town life, it might not work out for you here, okay? Especially if you move to a smaller town in Southern Oregon, like Rogue River, Gold Hill, Shady Cove, Merlin, one of those types of places. You're gonna probably find yourself in a situation where your neighbor knows your business, and that's okay. We kind of look out for each other like that around here. But if you don't like that though, if you don't like the idea of your neighbor knowing you or wanting to talk to you, if that bothers you, then this probably isn't the place for you. Or at least we're gonna wanna find you a place very, very remotely out in the hills where nobody else is gonna be around you. And look, I get it. I totally do. I mean, I understand wanting your privacy or even, you know, the appeal of a big city where you just blend in and you're just part of it, okay? But that is not here, okay? So if that's the lifestyle you want, you will not get that here. I can tell you that right now. And you should know that before you move here. The folks at the grocery store are gonna learn your name. Your neighbor is gonna know that you ordered Uber Eats 4 times this week, and the rest of the street might be gossiping about how you don't know how to cook. Who knows? That could happen here, okay? But that is something that people should know and that people tend to overlook, is that there's a big difference between living in a small town and living in a big city. And if you're not on board with that, then it's definitely a recipe for disaster. Speaking of disasters, what about big deal breakers? Is there something that you don't know about that you should know about Southern Oregon, okay? Yes, there is. There's actually 2 things, and those are numbers 6 and 7 on this list, and they're actually kind of related. So number 6 is the heat, okay? It can get hot, and I'm not talking like Arizona, Las Vegas, Death Valley hot, but we do break 100 every year pretty much, and we've cracked 110 even a few times in the past few years. Like in 2021, we hit 115 degrees. In 2022, we hit 114 degrees. And those happen, but those are also pretty rare, and I'd call those anomalies in my opinion. We might, you know, go over 110 degrees maybe a handful of times every decade. It's rare, just as rare as getting maybe a foot of snow, let's say. Doesn't happen often, but it could happen in rare circumstances. But that's something you need to know about if you're thinking about moving to Southern Oregon, okay? If you're thinking it's gonna be this Pacific Northwest rainforest that you see on TV, it's not the case all the time. But thankfully, it's not that bad. It's more like an average of 90 or so in July, which is very tolerable. But if you can't stand those random few days where it gets really, really hot, then this might not be the place for you. Or you could just do what the rest of us do and pay attention to the weather, and when it's gonna be really, really hot, you just go on over to the coast, you get yourself some fish and chips, you dip your toes in that nice cold water. It's gonna be like 70 degrees over there, maybe even cloudy, maybe even raining, who knows, but you just go over to the coast and make a weekend out of it and get out of the heat. Number 7 is pretty related to the heat, and that is wildfires, okay? And this is one I feel is quite possibly the most over dramatic one on this list, okay? I hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, you guys get wildfires. I would never move there. My house is gonna burn down, and on and on and on and on and on. Wildfires are like homeless people, and bear with me on this analogy here, in that they pretty much exist anywhere on the West Coast, okay? That's where I was going with that, right? So if you live on the West, you are gonna deal with homelessness and you're gonna deal with wildfires. It's just the way it goes. It's just the price of admission, all right? The problem with wildfires is more to do with the inconvenience of the smoke than it is about the actual danger of the fire itself, okay? There are times where the fire's in a perfect area and the wind's blowing in the perfect direction and Southern Oregon gets socked in with smoke. Okay, it happens. Air quality can get bad. It can also happen in any other area in the Western United States. So this really isn't something that's unique to Southern Oregon, okay? But generally, when the air quality is bad, it's not typically for very long, okay? The wind generally changes and then the smoke gets blown out. But there are times where the stars align against us and it could be a week or maybe even more where it can be pretty bad. But as a local, you just kind of take the bad with the good, you know? At least we don't have earthquakes or tornadoes or hurricanes or alligators or any of that kind of stuff. But wildfires do happen, and that could be a deal breaker for you if you can't get exposed to, you know, bad air quality at all, and you don't have a way of getting away to the coast like I just explained, that could be a deal breaker for you, and that's something that you need to be aware of. Okay, now we're getting down to the last 2 reasons, right? So obviously you've been doing some research if you found my YouTube channel here, and so like any good researcher, you are probably wondering, what am I missing about Medford, Oregon? Great question. The answer to that is in the next 2 and the last 2 reasons of why you should never move to Medford, Oregon. Okay, these reasons are based on things that are harder to research, okay, harder to find real data about, and I'm going to deliver that data to you right now. Number 8 is jobs. See, Medford is not a bustling metropolis with an endless amount of jobs. So depending on what you do for a living, you might have a hard time finding employment. If you're an executive of a big corporation, for example, you might not have much opportunity here in Southern Oregon. If you're a healthcare worker, or you work remotely, or you're in the IT industry, or you're a tradesman, or in the construction field, there's quite a bit of opportunity for all those fields. But for those white collar corporate jobs, there just really aren't as many of those around here. But if traveling is an option for you, if you're able to like work remotely and travel, our airport is really accommodating for that, with flights to several major hubs that can get you pretty much anywhere in the country with one stop. So not a bad option for that. But most of the actual business-minded people that I know in Southern Oregon are entrepreneurs who have started their own businesses, run their own businesses. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff going around here too, so maybe that's a good option for you to consider. Number 9 is housing. So if you're expecting to find giant developments full of brand new homes like you'd see in Phoenix, Dallas, Vegas, Reno, Boise, on, think again, okay? As fast as we've been growing, the local and regional developers here just cannot keep up, and the big national companies have not fully moved in yet, and they probably won't, honestly. The result of that is a shortage of homes to sell, and the result of that is a very competitive real estate market, and that leads to very limited options at the lower price points, especially say under like the 250 to 300,000 range. It's very hard to find a livable home in that range. As you climb into that 400 to 450,000 range, you actually get to find some pretty nice options, and that's right around the median home price in Southern Oregon. As you climb more into the 500 to 600 range, you get some really nice new construction options, and as you get into the 700s, you get to add more land. As you go beyond that, it really just becomes more a matter of, you know, where do you want to be and what do you like in the home.
So how long have you been living in Southern Oregon, and do you like it?
5 years? Yes.
3 years, and yes, we like it.
Since 2005.
And I do like it, yeah.
You do like it?
Yes.
I left for about 15 years.
We love it.
We've been here for 20 years and we really enjoy it.
3 years or so.
I love it here.
Is there anything that you hate about living in Southern Oregon that just really bothers you about the place?
No.
No. Hate's too strong a word, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't match that one, no.
Not the smoke or the cannabis industry or homeless, all those are popular responses.
Well, the smoke, nobody likes it, but I don't think it's Ashland's fault.
Agreed. Yeah.
I agree.
No, I mean, sometimes the winters last a little too long for my taste.
Yeah. Where'd you move here from?
New Orleans.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well, I was in Hawaii because I loved the weather. I don't love the rain and the snow, although I know we need it. It's just not my favorite.
I don't say I could say anything I hate. I think the difficulty was like the one-way streets.
Yeah, especially the one-ways in Grants Pass can get a little confusing if it's your first time into town.
Exactly, yeah.
For sure.
There's been some economic decline and I think it's affecting everybody, but I feel like because of our temperate weather, we tend to attract more transient people. So
Yep.
it's the climate.
Yeah.
I think those cars drive us crazy, some of the traffic
Of course,
up
that
there.
Main Street get to be a little loud.
Yeah, on a busier street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You know,
not like,
not
oh,
like
you know,
you
we
hate
can't
it,
deal
no.
with this. It's
Sure.
just annoying.
What do you think is most misunderstood about Southern Oregon?
I know when we first moved here, people kind of teased us and they said, oh, it's all a bunch of lumberjacks and they're all really uneducated, and that's not true. We have some great medical people here. We have some really great, diverse technical and type things. Our demographics have changed dramatically since we've been here. It used to be more of a blue collar, and now we have a lot of everything.
That it doesn't rain every day of the year. Everybody thought, oh, you're moving to Oregon, all of that rain. And we found out we get 18 inches of rain a year in this area. We do like the climate.
The climate's real nice. Access to the outdoors, hiking trails, all that stuff is a real big plus.
And the four seasons, we like having the four seasons, but they're not intense. So you can get out every day of the year.
Well, I think if you're not from Oregon, people probably assume that it's a really liberal state, and Southern Oregon is not. We're really conservative, and we have conservative values.
We're not all like hillbillies.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen, it's a nice community. It's a small community.
Yeah.
It's a lot smaller than what I've been used to. But,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a close knit. Like people are like always. I feel like people are always watching out for everybody here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there is a little bit of an issue with homeless, but like there is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Totally. Yeah. I agree.
I don't know what they don't understand. I mean, it's a pretty idyllic place. Used to be hard to find work. My parents live here too, so I used to live here, not for long, but I've come to visit them. I always had a hard time finding jobs back then, but now there's all kinds of work. So
There's a lot of it. Absolutely.
A lot of people look at small towns as though they're unsophisticated or kind of, backward. And that's just, not the truth in Ashland. There's, an intellectual aspect, a creative aspect, a physical, aspect. You'll see 85-year-olds hiking up the mountains, so it's very inspirational.
I agree with all of that. And I would also add that I came from the health and wellness industry, and people up here are far more advanced in that way. There are a lot of do-it-yourself canning, growing, animal husbandry that is far ahead of other places. We're lucky, and we have this amazing co-op that dedicates itself to providing local product.
What are some of the reasons you think people should move to Southern Oregon?
There's a lot of different choices. You have your more urban choices, and you have more rural. There's lots of different things to choose from. So really think about what type of school district do you want to be in? What kind of, do you want to live on a mountain or not? What kind of, things are really important to you, because everything's really diverse here. So just do a little scouting first and find somebody who's knowledgeable about the area.
Yeah,
A
definitely.
local.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Hence the video, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking one thing that we've learned since we've been here, people in our age group, we're finding that there's so much going on for people who are retired that we didn't anticipate. And I think probably my main thing would be you can be active here.
It's a friendly climate. People are friendly for the most part.
And nice. Yeah.
the outdoors, the rivers and the lakes are pretty awesome. And hiking and the coast and the redwoods are nearby. Mountains, skiing at Mount Ashland. That's the main draw for me.
I'm with you
And,
on all that.
A lot of nice people. People are very friendly.
Well, I'm not sure we want too many people to move to Southern Oregon. No, but you're a real estate agent, so we'll say.
I think the secret's already out, but that's
So you can sell more homes, I guess?
You can breathe fresh air. You can walk Lithia Park. You could go hiking. You could see plays. There's just a wealth of things.
Yeah.
You're not that far away from Portland, and
We'd love to see more like-minded people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things people don't know about Southern Oregon is all the culture. The Criterion in Medford, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival here, all the galleries. There's all sorts of stuff like that. That's really, I think, catches people off guard when they
let's
see
not
it.
forget the wineries too. There's a lot of great wineries.
What's your favorite thing to do in Southern Oregon?
Definitely the views. Yeah.
I'd say the fishing for sure. I mean, the Rogue River and then the Downport River as well.
Yeah.
We'll be going up and down that.
Awesome.
Oh gosh, hiking. There's so much stuff on the river. I love rafting. The weather's great, so I'm able to. I can garden. We're in Zone 7B, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So you can grow watermelons here. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think the hiking, the walking,
Music,
the live music, the cultural venues, nice places to eat out.
libraries,
It's just a
wonderful
lot
libraries.
of access to things that we enjoy.
Any favorite hikes?
You want to share on camera?
That'd be tough.
There's some good ones.
We love going on the other side of Mount Ashland and joining up on the PCT. We actually were up there 2 weeks ago and could hike it in the snow.
Any advice for somebody who's considering moving to Southern Oregon?
You don't have to spend a lot of money on fun things to do with your kids. There are lots of outdoor activities that you can find and do, and find kind of a community of people doing them together, and you can do it for free.
Come and stay, Airbnb or hotels or whatever, and experience it. That's what we did. We visited here several times and we fell in love with it.
Get ready for a good time.
Right.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's
taking
nice.
the views. I mean, that's what I like the most is like the mountainscapes and everything. Like any corner you take, there's a view around the corner. So unlike
The weather's
city, like I
nice.
said, yeah, the weather's nice.
It's a great community. There's a lot of family-oriented things, a lot of things that are free, like Frog Fair. There's a sidewalk, what's the chalk thing called in October? Not Art on the Road.
Yeah.
So there's lots of, there's back to the 50s in the summer and the car shows.
Yeah.
There's lots of free family events that you don't have to pay to get into. So if you're on a budget, it's very family friendly.
Probably do it sooner than later.
Right. Yeah, do it sooner than later. That's a good one.
Don't put it off.
Buy now, you hear that? First area on the list is Eagle Trace, okay? And this is the typical East Medford subdivision. It's up on the hill. It's the area that's, it's also got Saddle Ridge and Eagle Trace and Innsbrook Ridge and Bordeaux. It's all kind of right below Roxy Ann Peak. So there's this kind of general area above McAndrews and to the east of Foothill Road. That kind of whole area up on the hill there. So anyways, that's what a lot of people refer to or think of when they refer to East Medford. So that area, the homes are around 600,000 up to into the millions. You can get, up above the million range for some of the bigger, newer homes up there in the Saddle Ridge and Autumn Park area that are really, really pretty. But a lot of the homes there are newer, up in that section. But there's also homes that are mixed in that have been, from the 60s. So you get kind of a wide range of homes that are those original ones built back in the day to the newer developments that are being built right now that are really, really spectacular and high dollar. But this part of Medford is really popular because it's just so close and convenient to everything. And that's going to be one of the themes that you see throughout this video, is that there's going to be a lot of the same kind of thing going on in terms of proximity to the hospital. Like, for example, is only 10 minutes away from this neighborhood. Grocery stores about 7 minutes. Wine, hiking, biking, parks, all that just within, a couple minutes drive. Airport 15 minutes, Costco 15 minutes. All of those really close, okay? One of my favorite things about this area, about the Eagle Trace and just kind of normal East Medford area, is the proximity to Roxy Ann Peak, okay? And so it's just right below the mountain. But what's cool about that is that Roxy Ann has a really neat trail that goes right around it. And you can see it from, if you're just looking up at the mountain, but there's a nice wide old road that you can walk or bike and go all the way around that mountain. It's a nice few mile trek up there, but really, really gorgeous views, especially when you get on the back side of the mountain. If you hike that in the springtime with all the wildflowers, really, really pretty. So that is why that is one of the most popular neighborhoods here in Southern Oregon. Full stop. Okay, so I did not even tell you about what I meant about being the best neighborhoods, okay? And as a realtor, that's very important to do because there's a lot of rules around what I can and cannot say about neighborhoods and whether a neighborhood is the best or the worst or anything like that. I really can't provide an opinion on that. So I want to be very clear about what I mean by when the title says the best neighborhoods. What I'm talking about there is what my clients have told me are the best neighborhoods. So clients that I've taken and shown different parts of Medford, different parts of Southern Oregon, and said, hey, what do you think are the best neighborhoods in Southern Oregon? What are your favorite ones? And these are the ones that they came up with. So this is not my opinion, this is the opinion of clients of mine, and I'm sharing that information with you, people that I've given tours of Southern Oregon. These are the neighborhoods that they thought are the best. So hopefully that provides enough clarity there. I don't want anybody getting in trouble like myself. I'd love to be able to help you, but I can't help you if I'm in trouble. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. Moving on to the next neighborhood, which is actually just right down the street from the first neighborhood. We're talking about the Cherry Lane and Summerfield area, okay? And so it's very, very similar really to the Eagle Trace neighborhood that we just talked about, but it's kind of like the more original, right? It's really, it's a little bit further down the hill, so you're not
It's far away from some of these things, but still very, very convenient. One of the awesome things about Cherry Lane, and we're talking about Cherry Lane, Stanford Avenue, Hillcrest Road, all kind of below the Eagle Trace subdivision. That's kind of the general area we're talking about here. But a really cool thing about this neighborhood, one of my favorite things, and it's actually my kids' favorite neighborhood, because on Cherry Lane, they go all out for decorations on Christmas time, okay? So if you wanna go take a little cruise around and go look at Christmas lights in Medford, Cherry Lane is the place you wanna go, okay? The houses are decorated like crazy. I mean, there's a line of cars a mile long trying to get in there. I haven't been there on Halloween, but I imagine it's probably pretty much the same thing. But it's really like a festive neighborhood. It's a lot of fun. And so the homes in there are beautiful, bigger homes that tend to be nice, kind of bigger size lots usually. And similar price point though to the other areas we just talked about, being around 600,000 up to $1 million. You're not gonna find as many newer homes in this neighborhood because they're kind of just more of like that bigger, kind of more original homes. And so a lot of them have been updated and those sorts of things, but really just a pretty neighborhood. Hospital's only 4 minutes away, grocery store's like 2, all the same hiking, biking, vineyards, golf, all that's just, a couple minutes away. 15 minutes to airport, Costco. So again, very, very central location, very similar to the previous neighborhood in Eagle Trace, but just a little bit further down the hill. Next up is the Cali Vista neighborhood, and this is essentially just moving further south down the same line, okay? We went from Eagle Trace down to Cherry Lane and Summerfield, and now we're going right down to Cali Vista. And this is, again, similar to those other two areas, but it's actually some newer homes, right? And so you're gonna get smaller lots here, newer construction, price point, 500 to 900 range. You might see a little bit above 900, but that's kind of where those homes are. And obviously the bigger homes are that 900 range. The 3-bed, 2-bath, single level homes are probably more in the like 6 range. You might find a few under 5. But really, this neighborhood's popular because it is a little bit more affordable as at a starting point, than some of the others like we talked about, Cherry Lane and stuff. It's harder to get into those in the 5s, but without getting into like an older home that's a fixer-upper. But you can get like a turnkey home in here at a more affordable price because you're typically going to be looking at a smaller lot compared to Eagle Trace or Cherry Lane. So same story here with all the conveniences. Everything is so close. Hospital within 4 minutes away. Grocery stores, you could probably hit it with a baseball. Wine, hiking, biking, golf, all that, parks, all that, all just minutes away. 15 minutes to airport, 15 minutes to Costco, same as the others, because they're all right next to each other. Okay, next one, we are just gonna go get real fancy now, and we are talking about the Rogue Valley Country Club neighborhood. And this is where if you wanna be, the highfalutin, rubbing elbows with all the socialites, the doctors, lawyers, all those, this is where you wanna be, okay? The Rogue Valley Country Club, well, actually, you could probably be in any of these because they're also close to the country club, but this is where you're actually on the country club. So if you want to drive your golf cart from your house down to the club, you want to drive right out of your little golf cart garage and get onto the course and go play, this is the spot that allows you to do that, okay? It's the Rogue Valley Country Club neighborhood, and it's basically the area that's kind of west of North Phoenix Road, just across the street from Cherry Lane and Cali Vista and all those sorts of areas that we just talked about. But this is a little bit more exclusive because there's just not as much there in terms of options, okay? You can find some options that are right on the border of the golf course, but finding one that's actually within the golf course that is surrounded by golf course is not as easy to come by because there's only a couple areas where you can even have that. So those homes tend to be pretty sought after, and they really have a great setting. I've been to parties and stuff out there with friends where you sit on the back patio with their pool and everything, and it just overlooks golf course everywhere. It's really, really pretty, and in a really unique setting. There's only one other place in Southern Oregon where you can even get that, and that's in Eagle Point. On the Eagle Point golf course. Anyways, lots of really cool stuff there in terms of the feel of the neighborhood. A lot of the homes here are more original, back in the 50s, 60s. I've seen even some of the 40s, but a lot of the older homes in this neighborhood because the country club was developed way back then. So these homes went in back then, and a lot of them have been updated and those sorts of things. So you can sneak into a house here in maybe in the under 500 range if you were to find a real fixer-upper. Those tend to go pretty quickly. But if you wanted to find a nice, newer, updated home, I mean, you're looking at right around $1 million. And they go pretty quickly there too if they're in a prime location that's, you know, away from the busier roads, and has that, you know, golf cart garage type of a situation, and has that nice patio like I described. You're definitely in the $1 million range. Proximity to all the amenities, the hospital, you know, same deal, 4 minutes, grocery store a couple minutes, hiking, biking, wine, all just a couple minutes away. Golf course is obviously like in your backyard, so that doesn't even count. But the thing I wanted to mention too here is that the amenities, right? So the Rogue Valley Country Club has its own amenities like pickleball, tennis, obviously golf, all the events that go along with the club, the social type stuff. Like there's a lot of those types of things that go on there that are really, really cool. And you're still only 15 minutes to Costco and the airport. So great location, especially if you want to have that, you know, golf kind of lifestyle. Or, you know, just be part of the club. It's really a great spot to be doing that. I'm gonna give you a quick second to hit that pause button in case you need to top off that beverage or go grab some more grapes to throw on top of that charcuterie board, since we're talking about the country club and getting all classy. So maybe even if you want to pick up the phone right now, shoot me a call, shoot me a text, and reach out about, you know, some questions that you have about the Southern Oregon real estate market. If there's anything I can do to help you, happy to do that, obviously. Or you can find my email address if you'd rather email me. You can find that down in the description of this video. But let's go ahead and resume. Now we're heading over to the west side, okay? We're leaving East Medford, we're going west, and we're going all the way out to Jacksonville. And here's the deal. Jacksonville is not part of Medford, okay? I get it. Jacksonville is its own town, but if you're looking at Medford and you're looking at like the top neighborhoods, you want to know where, you know, the nicest houses are and the most popular neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff, Jacksonville is going to be an area that you look at, okay? It's just, it's one of those. It's really a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. It's actually the original town of Southern Oregon, okay? It was developed, or I guess you can't say developed, it was founded, there we go, in the 1850s. So it has a very historic feel, lots of cool old buildings, lot old, you know, brick and everything. And they do a very, very good job of keeping that whole look and feel to the town. So you can find homes there that are built in the 1800s that are really, really cool, that are, you know, that have obviously been updated since then. But if you're interested in that type of thing, you know, restoring an old house, like Jacksonville is definitely the part of Southern Oregon that you'd want to be looking at. And there's a lot of those types of options out there. Lots of cool, you know, bed and breakfast type houses that that you could run if you're interested in that type of thing. But there's also a good mix of newer construction too. So one of my favorite neighborhoods in Jacksonville is the Noonan Square, and what they've done in that neighborhood is they've taken all of the, you know, the CC&Rs and the building requirements there, and they've made it to where all the homes have this very you know, ornate detail and stuff to them, very craftsman Victorian kind of style to them. It's really nice. So it just creates this cool look of older homes, but they're all actually you know, modern homes. They're built in the 2000s and stuff. So very, very cool neighborhood. If you're looking in Jacksonville and not around Jacksonville, because that's one of the things that you'll find if you're searching on one of the websites, is that you type in Jacksonville and you'll get a big area, and that's because most of the Applegate Valley is actually, you know, given a Jacksonville address. So if you want to actually look in the Jacksonville town or city, it's just going to be the area like immediately around Jacksonville, maybe like a mile radius the max. But what you'll see in that neighborhood is you'll see a lot of like mid 600s, and if you're looking for like a 3-bed 2-bath home that's kind of more turnkey ready, you're probably going to be looking into like the 800s, all right? But in this area, you can go as high as you want, right? There's homes that are well over the $2 million range in Jacksonville that are beautiful, you know, bigger properties with great views, bigger homes, all of the above. You can spend however much you want to spend depending on how fancy you want to get. But the deal with Jacksonville is that it is a little bit further out of town. So the hospital is about 20 minutes away. The grocery store, they actually have one right in town, but if you wanted to go to Costco, that's about 15 minutes. The airport's about 15 minutes. But there's all sorts of hiking, biking, wine, all that kind of stuff, all right there in town within just a couple minutes. So again, a lot to offer itself just being where it is, but a little bit further outside of, you know, the Medford area itself. Sticking to the west side, we're gonna go to our next neighborhood, which is the West Hills along Old Stage Road, okay? And this goes kind of from the Jacksonville area all the way down to like Scenic Avenue. It's kind of the main stretch, but you could really say that it goes all the way into Gold Hill because there's that pocket between Scenic and Gold Hill that's actually really nice. And that includes like Cane Creek and it's kind of this whole little area like tucked back into the mountains. It's really pretty. So I wouldn't sleep on that area because it's nice. Okay, I guarantee we go see a house in there, you're going to be thinking, this is a really nice area. I'm really glad you showed it to us. So let's not discount that area. One of the really nice things about the West Hills area is the fact that it's just so easy to get into Central Point and Medford. Okay, you just hop down Taylor Road or Scenic Avenue and you're right in the middle of town in no time. Like 5 minutes or so, you're right into the thick of it. So that's a really, really great feature there. And also the views. Okay, you have from the West Hills, you have east facing views, which are really, really spectacular. So you end up with being able to look at Mount McLaughlin, and that's just beautiful with this little snow-capped peak. Most of the year you have Roxanne Mountain that you'll be able to look at. You'll have all of Medford, and what you also get in the foreground is a lot of pasture land. So if you're up on the hills, you kind of envision, you know, overlooking pasture land and then the city and then the big mountains in the background. It's really, you know, I think a much better view in my mind than being on the, you know, East Medford side and looking back towards the west, because then you're just going to get baked by the sun in the evenings. But you know, that's okay though too. If you put a little sunshade down, you'll be all right. But a lot of bigger properties over on the West Hills too. So you can end up with, you know, an acre or so or more. So depending on what you're looking for, if you're more interested in, you know, gardening and those sorts of things, then the West Hills might be a little bit better fit for you than the East side, where it's kind of more conducive to the lifestyle. If you're, you know, a golfer, or you like to go walking, you know, your dog in the neighborhood, or go to the parks, those kinds of things. So West side's definitely a little bit more of the kind of country, rural type of a feel, but also very convenient to be able to get into town. So as you can imagine, with an area like that, it's not as much of a development, right? It's definitely like the houses are just more kind of onesie twosie, and there's a lot of variety in what's out there. So you can find homes that are built, you know, a long time ago, and you can find homes that are brand new. So you can even find manufactured homes out there, which you're not going to find in East Medford. So all sorts of stuff over on that west side, but really, you know, one of the most popular neighborhoods between the clients that I talked to, they really, really liked it because of those views and the proximity to town and all those sorts of things. And so again, about 5 minutes to get into town to the grocery store, 20 minutes to the hospital, 10 minutes to the airport and Costco, and hiking, biking, all those things, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, depending on where you're heading to. We're gonna talk about 2 more neighborhoods, and then I'm gonna tell you about that one neighborhood that did not make the cut, so you definitely wanna stay tuned for that one. So first up is Farmington Avenue. So we're going back to the east side, going back to East Medford, because this is a neighborhood that I think is really, really cool, and it's pretty popular among the clients because, again, the proximity to all the amenities and the fact that it's a lot of the newer developments. Okay, so you have builds in here from Hayden Homes, who's a regional builder, D.R. Horton, who's one of the biggest builders in the nation, Galpin Homes, who's more of a local builder. You have really nice homes built by all of them and some others, but you could see homes in this area for, you know, $900,000 and $400,000 or $450,000, really more likely. But there's a big variety in terms of the size and of home and the finishes. So that's one of the things that is really, really cool about this area, is just you do have that variety, but a lot of them tend to be kind of more of that higher end, right? So you end up with a lot of like the 500s and 600s with some of the, you know, sprinkled in up above that, and some kind of smaller cottage style homes that are below that. This is a pretty great option and very popular among people that are looking for something a little bit more affordable. So similar to like the Cali Vista, this is maybe a step down in price point from there. But also there are some that are a little bit higher. So it's kind of a, you know, depends on the house that you're looking at, I guess would be the best way to say that. Hospital is about 10 minutes away from this one. Grocery store is about 5 minutes. Hiking, biking, wine, golf, all that just a couple minutes away. Airport and Costco about 10 minutes away. So very, very similar to all the other East Medford stuff that we talked about. It's just all kind of condensed in the same area. The same road goes right through it, which is Foothill Road, and McAndrews takes you straight into town. So it's all really pretty central and nice and convenient from that standpoint. Last but definitely not least is a cool little pocket that I think is really, really neat. And a lot of people really, really like this because it's so convenient. Okay, so this is also just down the hill from the Eagle Trace and all that, and it's kind of right at the base of it. Okay, and this is called the La Strada Circle area, and it's really a a pretty neat area. One of the nicest things about this area that I hear a lot about is just the views, okay? So you're the lowest part of the hill, so you're not looking at many other rooftops, you're just looking straight out at town, okay? And you also have a really pretty vineyard to the south there that, if you're depending on which way your house is situated in this area, you could be having some really, really spectacular vineyard views that have also some of the city and also the big mountains over to the side. So great area for views. And because it's more of a hillside, it's definitely more of a sloped area, you end up with some bigger homes because there are multiple levels, and so a lot of them have, you know, a daylight basement type of a thing. So if you're looking for that single level home, this is probably not the neighborhood to target, but it is a great area for if you're open to having, you know, a daylight basement or maybe a rec room or whatever you have down there. So great neighborhood, a lot of bigger homes. They're generally, you know, above 2,000 square feet and into like the 4,000 square foot range. Typically going to be about 650,000 up to $1 million, but you're also going to not have as much usable land, okay? So low maintenance, but in exchange for that, you get those really, really killer views. Same deal with location. Hospital about 10 minutes, grocery store about 7 minutes, hiking, biking, wine, all is like right there. Costco, airport's all about 15 minutes away. So I told you before we started that there was a neighborhood that did not make the cut and that the locals are going to be all upset at me about it, and that's probably true. You can probably check it out in the comments. I'm probably getting shredded, but here's the deal. It'll be okay. I'll make it. It'll be all right. That area though is Ashland, Oregon, and if you're looking for the best spots, the best parts of Southern Oregon, you'd be crazy not to consider Ashland as well. Number 8 on the list, coming in at an average price per square foot of $262.34, is what we call the Summerfield neighborhood of East Medford. And this area gets its name from the Summerfield Park, which is a nice little park with a play structure, lawn, and a paved walking path around it. And this specific area that I was looking at here in East Medford is east of North Phoenix Road between McAndrews down to Cali Vista, and it includes streets like Cherry Lane and parts of Hillcrest Road. A lot of these homes on the north side of Cherry Lane were built in the 80s and 90s, whereas homes on the south side of Cherry Lane were primarily built in the 2010s or even newer. The average home size was just over 3,700 square feet, and the average lot size worked out to be about a half an acre. And the average sold price was $923,000. There were a few homes with a couple acres that brought that average lot size up, so I'd expect to find most of the homes around here to be on nice larger lots between a quarter acre and a half acre, which is actually pretty good size for being in town and so close to all the amenities like medical services, restaurants, the Rogue Valley Country Club, and all sorts of other stuff. The house I'm standing in front of right now is actually a really great example of the typical beautiful home you'll find in this area. It was built in 1978, beautifully updated inside, just about 3,700 square feet, 5 beds, 5 baths, and on over a half an acre lot. It has a really nice in-ground swimming pool, amazing outdoor kitchen and living space. It's currently listed for $974,000 by my friends at the Rockwell Group at eXp Realty. And it's just a great representation of what you can find in this area. And as I mentioned, this area also features some really nice newer construction where you can find a 3,000 square foot home for under $1 million, like this one that I'll show you some pictures of right now at 4078 Fieldbrook Avenue, which is on the south side of Cherry Lane. It was built in 2019, almost 3,100 square feet, 4 bed, 3 bath, just over a quarter acre lot, and it has a gorgeous, spacious backyard with all sorts of upgrades like a 50-year roof, a solar system, RV parking, and this one's listed for $995,000 by Deanna and Diane at John L. Scott. Now that you've seen what the Summerfield neighborhood of Medford has to offer, let's move on to our next stop on the list. We are at number 7 on the list with an average price per foot of $267.76 in what we're calling the Eagle Trace subdivision of East Medford. And my theory is that the developer named it Eagle Trace after a day of drinking some bourbon, had a nice bottle of Eagle Rare and another nice bottle of Buffalo Trace, and they said, let's just mash those together and call it Eagle Trace. I'm pretty certain that's not accurate, but it's the only thing I could come up with that made any sense. So there you go. Anyways, this area is just to the east of the hill and up above the Summerfield neighborhood that we were just in. And we're really looking at the area north of McAndrews and Hillcrest and east of Foothill Road. And as you can imagine, being up on the hill here provides some really spectacular views of the Rogue Valley, which is one of the things that makes this neighborhood so popular. This area includes the streets like Saddle Ridge, Autumn Park, Monterey Drive, Cloudcrest, and of course, Eagle Trace Drive. Similar to the last neighborhood, you'll find that most of these homes were built in the late 90s and early 2000s, but again, there's still plenty of new construction happening around here, like these beautiful homes right behind me on Autumn Park Drive. The one directly behind me at 5618 Autumn Park Drive, it is brand new construction from Mahar Homes, a fantastic local builder, and it's listed by my friend Shannon Mahar at John L. Scott. And this beautiful home is 3,400 square feet, 4 bedroom, 3 baths. It's on 0.6 of an acre with just gorgeous views and all sorts of high-end finishes that you can see in the pictures. And it's listed at $1.2 million, and it serves as just a wonderful example of the quality of home that you can get here. It's definitely high-end luxury status, and that's what most of these homes in the Eagle Trace neighborhood are. Nice big homes, 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, great views, and they're listed around $1.25 million. And you can also find plenty of homes closer to the $700,000 range if you go down in size or up in age and all that sort of stuff. Now, of the 33 homes sold in the Eagle Trace subdivision that met my criteria, the average size was just over 4,300 square feet on 0.68 of an acre, selling for $1.137 million. So a lot larger home than lots than the last neighborhood, plus a view with maintaining all the conveniences of the location. And that combination apparently drives the price up a bit. And one thing I'll mention here is the nice little feature of this area is the proximity to Roxanne Mountain for the hiking and biking trails that go around the top of it. It's a really, really popular spot, and it's literally in your backyard if you live in this neighborhood. So let's go ahead and move on to the next stop, which is a great one for all you golfers out there. Welcome to number 6 on the list of the luxury neighborhoods in Medford, Oregon. Coming in at an average price per square foot of $301.94 is the Rogue Valley Country Club neighborhood. And what we're looking at here is primarily golf course front homes that are bordering one of the Rogue Valley Country Club courses. Now, the Rogue Valley Country Club has been open for over 100 years, with most of the development starting around 1910 from what I understand. So as you can imagine, the homes around here have a lot more variance in age and style and size and price. There were homes here on the list that were built in the 1940s clear through to the 2010s. So you get a really good variety, but the common theme here is that the homes are generally very nice. Older homes have been restored and updated, newer homes are built to fit in. There really are some stunning homes in this area that have all of the things that you would expect in a nice golf community, like a golf cart garage, a pool, and a nice patio where you can hang out and watch the golfers pass by. And proximity to the country club is also convenient and makes for a really fun social life. A really great example of one of these types of homes is this one right here on your screen, which was recently sold by my friend Doug Morse at John L. Scott. It's on South Foothill Road, which has amazing golf course front homes, and you can see it has a gorgeous pool, great landscaping, and it has been beautifully updated to complement the mid-century modern architecture. This home was built in 1965. It's just over 6,000 square feet, 3/4 of an acre, and it's sold for $1.37 million. So if you're looking for the perfect place to retire in Medford, Oregon, I think you would have a hard time beating some of these homes in the Rogue Valley Country Club neighborhood. In addition to the amenities of the club, the area is also very close to the hospital and other medical facilities. It's very convenient to get to restaurants and shopping and vineyards and all of the above. So it's no wonder why this is such a desirable area, and it's clear why it's number 6 on the list. The next stop gets us into the top 5, and I cannot wait to show you what I have in store for you next. So let's go. Number 5 on the list with an average price per foot of $322.12 is Jacksonville, Oregon. And I know Jacksonville is its own city and it's not part of Medford, but it is in the Medford, Oregon area, and that's why it's on this list. And spoiler alert, none of the remaining neighborhoods that we're going to look at are actually in Medford, but they are very close. Now, I won't go into a ton of detail about Jacksonville, Oregon, because I actually made a separate video all about that, which I'll include a link to up here in the description, and in the description of this video, in case you want to check out and learn more about Jacksonville, Oregon. But here's the scoop. It's gorgeous, it's charming, it's historic, and it has everything you could ever want in the perfect, iconic, high-end small town. Great food, great stores, it's super festive during all the holidays, and I could go on, but you'll have to check out that video if you want to learn more about that town. What I want to show you is what some of the homes in Jacksonville, Oregon look like. And I think this one, which was recently sold by my friend Julianne Rawlings at Sotheby's, is such a wonderful example of the type of home you can find here. It's a really high-end home with the colonial architecture that just fits the historic charm of Jacksonville. It was built in 1999, 4,400 square feet, 4-bed, 5-bath, and it's on about 1.25 acres of property with outstanding views a pool house, and lots of luxury touches, and it's just really nicely done from top to bottom. And a top-notch home like this in a charming little town like Jacksonville is going to run you about $1.69 million. Now, you can find nice homes in Jacksonville for less than that, or even for more than that. Of the homes that met my criteria, the average was 3,340 square feet and on about an acre of land, selling for a little bit over $1 million. The challenge with Jacksonville, though, is really the inventory, okay? It's pretty scarce. And if you're looking at, let's say the $700,000 to $800,000 range and you're wanting at least a 3-bed, 2-bath home, then there's really only a handful of options on the market at any given time. Like right now, I think there's 5. But if you're serious about buying in Jacksonville and you really want to just be ready to strike when you find the right home, then we can certainly find some great options for you. So don't hesitate to reach out. Now, let's move on to our next stop on our list. And number 4, with an average price per foot of $334.08, is what we call the West Hills and Old Stage Road area. So this area starts just outside of the city limits of Jacksonville to the north and follows Old Stage Road all the way to the point where it intersects with Interstate 5 and Gold Hill. There's quite a few side roads that take off of Old Stage, like Livingston Road and Old Military and Tammy Lane, and others that contain beautiful homes with, in my opinion, the best views in the Rogue Valley, although the one behind me is pretty great. And those are actually the West Hills behind me that you can see. I prefer those views over the ones you get over here in the East Hills, where we've been in the Eagle Trace and Summerfield areas and Saddle Ridge, primarily because you get more of the features from that side of the valley, like seeing Table Rocks and Roxy Mountain and Mount McLaughlin, and you have more farmland and pasture land in the view than you do here, which is more kind of city land. So to me, that's more desirable. And you add in the fact that most of those homes over there come in with a good amount of land, and you've got a combination that people want. The average home in the West Hills Old Stage area that met my criteria was 3,900 square feet and 6.75 acres and selling for just shy of 1.2 million. And that was just the average. There are some just insanely beautiful homes in the area too that are anything but average, like the one that I'm showing you right now on Tammy Lane that was recently sold by my friends Heidi Martins and Jeannie Schattler at Windermere in Jacksonville. And this one shows off the amazing views that I mentioned, and it's just such a stunning home that I had to show it. Even though it isn't the most expensive home that was on the list in this area, that honor actually goes to one that had over 14,000 square feet of living space, an elevator, and just too much to even go into, and that sold for over $3.5 million. So the sky is the limit in this area, but again, the same thing rings true where you can still find a great home at a much more attainable price point, like in the $700,000 range. Now, our next stop gets us into the top 3, and this is where the surprises start coming out. So let's go ahead and get into that number 3 spot. Number 3, with an average price per square foot of $359.13, is surprisingly Ashland, Oregon. And I say surprisingly because I bet some of you thought Ashland would be the number 1 spot on the list, including myself. And it very well could have been if we put a little bit more parameters and restrictions around the search criteria. You see, we're here to show you the Southern Oregon neighborhoods that are full of the fancy high-dollar homes. So I didn't feel right saying that we're only going to look at homes that are under a certain lot size or within the city limits, because in my experience, if you're a buyer looking for a really special, beautiful home, you generally aren't worried about whether it is or isn't in the city limits. It's more about the property itself, and with so much natural beauty and space, there's just a lot of high-end luxury homes that are not within the city limits of Medford or Ashland or anything like that. So without getting ahead of myself, the top 2 on this list might surprise you, so stay tuned. But now back to Ashland. Ashland had more homes that met my criteria than any other area on this list, and frankly, it wasn't even close. There were over 200 homes in Ashland, where the next closest area had only 66, and that's pretty compelling. But what it tells me, though, is that Ashland is expensive, but is it luxurious and high-end as well? And the answer is yes and no. It definitely is expensive, and it definitely has high-end homes, but the average sold price in Ashland over the last year was nearly $600,000 in comparison to Medford, which was less than $450,000. That's 33% higher just for the average home. So $750,000 in Ashland isn't really going to buy you a luxury home by most people's definitions. The average Ashland home on my list, which again only looked at homes above $750,000, was 2,900 square feet, 0.65 in an acre lot, and $986,000. So yeah, Ashland did have a lot of homes that met my criteria on my list, but expensive doesn't always equate to luxury, and I'm sure there are some that made the list that I wouldn't qualify or classify as a luxury high-end home. But either way, don't get me wrong, because there are some unreal homes
in just gorgeous estates in Ashland that will just blow your mind. Like the one right here at 191 Birdsong Lane, that's listed by my good friend Chris Martin of the Martin Outdoor Property Group. And this one has over 4,700 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and all the sustainable green certifications you can imagine. And it is just a beauty with so much natural light and marble flooring and so on and on and on. But the real star of the show is the location. It's just so close to downtown Ashland, close to hiking trails and biking trails. It has views, and it's really just a special high-end home. And that's why it's listed just shy of $2.5 million, which is actually a bargain for such a spectacular home. And while there aren't many like this one on the market, there are plenty of great luxury homes in Ashland, Oregon. And if you want to know more about Ashland or what it's like living in Ashland, Oregon, I actually made a video about that, which I'll include a link to right up here and in the description of this video. Now, let's put a bow on that one and move on to the next stop. Number 2 on the list with an average price per foot of $369.36 is Rogue River frontage homes. That's right, I'm talking about homes that are on the mighty Rogue River. The data that I was looking at had 66 Rogue River frontage homes sold in the last 2 years with an average sold price of $1,071,000 and an average house size of 3,400 square feet and an average lot size of just under 10 acres. Now, that's a pretty big property and probably a factor in why the price per foot is so high. But there are a fair amount of those really beautiful riverfront estates that have big pieces of property. And on this list, there were 5 properties of over 100 acres and about 15 of over 10 acres. So there's plenty of big riverfront estates. A good example of this is an exceptional listing from Randy McBee at John L. Scott. And this one is at 1212 Green Tree Loop in Grants Pass, and it is unbelievable. It's a 5-bed, 5-bath log home lodge with another 2-bed, 2-bath guest house, all on over 15 acres and more than 1,600 feet of Rogue River frontage. It's listed at $2.275 million, and these types of properties are out there. And I'm not saying they're a dime a dozen or anything, but I'm saying that if you had a couple $1 million to spend and you wanted a really incredible riverfront estate, we wouldn't really have too much of a hard time finding that for you. The nice thing about the homes that are on the Rogue River is that there is a huge variety. You can find anything from, fixer-uppers around $300,000 to super extravagant estates on, 330 acres like the one owned by TV actor Patrick Duffy that's listed for nearly $11 million. And there's quite literally everything in between, including a lot of high-end luxury riverfront homes. And that brings us to number 1 on the list with an average price per foot of $481.37 in the most expensive neighborhood in Medford, Oregon, and that is the Applegate River frontage homes. And I know Applegate is not in Medford, but again, let's just call it the Medford area. And I have to admit, I did not see this coming. I probably should have though, because with all the really high-end estates on the Applegate River, a lot of them have some sort of a vineyard component to them, and that really drives the price up. Okay, and there's a really good example of this that I'm going to show you right now. And this is on Highway 238, and it sold in 2021 for $2.13 million, and it is absolutely stunning. Just such a good example of what's available out there. It's almost 5,000 square feet of living space with a cabin for guests, a private vineyard with over 1,500 vines, all on 6 acres with park-like grounds. And I mean, what a beautiful place. Part of what contributes to the higher prices here is the scarcity, okay? And there were only 15 homes that met my criteria over the last 2 years sold here, as compared to 66 on the Rogue River. So some of the estates in the Applegate were big ones, which brought the average lot size to over 20 acres, and the average house size is about 3,200 square feet, all sold for on average $1.3 million. So finding a luxury home in the Applegate is a little bit more of a challenge than finding one in the Rogue, but it can be done. Okay, so why in the world would I say that Southern Oregon is better for retirement than the rest of the state? We're going to review plenty of specifics like weather and cost of living and activities, but what makes the Medford, Oregon area Oregon's best retirement town is simply the fact that it falls right in the sweet spot of every category that we're going to explore. Let me explain. So I did a bunch of research online and I found data to compare Medford with Portland, Eugene, and Bend, Oregon. And I think those are the best examples of places to compare to. And you may be wondering about places like Salem, Oregon, or Corvallis, Oregon.
or some of the others, but those are the main ones that we're going to look at today, because places like Salem get lumped in with Portland when you're looking at the data, and places like Corvallis, for example, gets lumped in with Eugene when you're looking at the data. So we're going to try to focus on those main hubs that are very different: Medford versus Bend versus Eugene versus Portland. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the data, and I'll show you what it says. Okay, if we start out by looking at just the overall cost of living index, and this information is coming from bestplaces.net, and they do a very comprehensive job of analyzing the data in these various markets. And so what you're looking at here is the cost of living of the major areas that we discussed, which is Medford, which comes in at a 102.3. And what that number is that is the number relative to the national average. So you can see Medford is slightly above the national average at 102.3, whereas the national average would be 100. Okay, so we're just slightly above that, but as you can tell, we're significantly below Portland, which is 132.4. You can see Eugene is 107.3 and Bend is 131.3. So Medford is significantly less expensive as a cost of living measurement that you can see here. So definitely the least expensive of all these four cities, as said by bestplaces.net cost of living index. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more specifically and look at the median home price. Okay, and again, as you can see, Medford comes in, according to the same source, at $376,700 for the median home price, and this may be as of 2022, I think, is what their data had said. So either way, it's all relevant because we're looking at it as a comparison to the others. Okay, so Medford 376, Portland 537,200, Eugene 458,500, and then Bend over $666,000 for the median home price. So certainly some beautiful homes in Bend, but really, what you're seeing there is that a nice 3-bed, 2-bath home in Bend is just significantly more expensive than it is in Medford, and that's not even necessarily for a better quality home. It's just that things are just in that much demand up there and just that much more expensive. So again, Medford coming in as the least expensive for median home price. And then carrying on to food and groceries, it's pretty much a wash across the board here. You can see Medford 100.5, and the most expensive is Portland at 103.7. So really not a significant difference there. Nothing to write home about. I don't think anyone's going to make a decision on where to retire based on a insignificant difference in food and grocery costs like you see there. So let's call that one a wash. Transportation costs though, wow. Medford comes in way below the national average at an 80.3. Portland comes in way above the national average at 129.9. And Eugene and Bend are both in kind of the, Eugene in the upper 80s, Bend in the lower 80s, but all of them, again, more than Medford, Oregon. So transportation, Medford's the clear winner on that one again. And then we go in and look at the weather, okay? And so this is looking at rainfall. And this is a big misconception of Southern Oregon and the Medford, Grants Pass area, is that, people think that it's like the other parts of Oregon, and it's just not. You can see here, we average 23 inches of rainfall a year, which is almost half that of Portland, and less than half of that of Eugene. So we're significantly less in terms of rainfall of both of those, but more than Bend. Okay, so Bend, Oregon does not get a lot of rain. It's in the east of the Cascades, which is in the high desert climate, so it's much more arid, much less rain over there. But with that comes a lot of other things like just the dryness and the all the different plants and stuff that grow over there. It's much different. So trying to garden over there versus over here, it's a lot different experience. So I think Medford's kind of right in that sweet spot there. 23 inches of rain is on par with areas like Sacramento, California, and stuff like that. So we're much more like Sacramento, California in terms of rainfall than we are Portland and Eugene, which is what a lot of people think of when they think Oregon. They think rain, and that's what you're going to get in Portland and Eugene. I lived in Eugene for 4 years, and so I know this 47 inches of annual rainfall. I know it well, and it's kind of miserable in my opinion. But looking at snowfall, so you saw that Bend had the least amount of rainfall, but it actually averages 21 inches of snowfall per year, as compared to Medford, Portland, and Eugene all average about 3. So again, you hop over to the east side of the Cascades and it snows.
I mean, it snows a lot. 21 inches of snow is a pretty good amount. So if you're thinking about retiring in Oregon, if you want to spend your days shoveling snow, Bend's a great place to do it. If you want to spend your days not doing that and outside doing fun activities that I'm going to tell you more about here in a few seconds, Medford is going to give you a lot more time to do that because you're not going to be trying to shovel your way out of your driveway during the winter months. But looking at sunny days, this is another one. This actually kind of surprised me. Not that Medford had 195 sunny days a year, but the fact that Medford was above Bend, because I know Bend is known for being very sunny. Like we talked about, it doesn't have a lot of rainfall that you noticed on the last chart we showed a couple charts ago. Not a lot of rainfall over in Bend, so I expected to see them have a higher number of sunny days. And anyways, this data is again from bestplaces.net, so this is their number. I'm just sharing it with you, but they came in at 162, and then Eugene in 155, Portland 144, Medford 195. So again, we're much sunnier, more sunny days than Portland and Eugene. And I this 162 on Bend is a little surprising to me. So I'll tell you though, I think Bend is sunnier than that, on par probably with Medford. But anyways, that's maybe something you want to research a little bit more, but this is the number that the bestplaces.net website showed. So then if we look at the high temps, and this is where Medford steps kind of apart a little bit from the other areas, is that Medford is hotter. Okay, so the high temperature average in July is 90 degrees. And then in Portland and Eugene, it's in the low 80s, and in Bend in the low 80s as well. So definitely a little bit warmer here, but not unbearable. Okay, the average high is 90, and so that's, it's not like you're in Phoenix, Arizona, or Las Vegas, or even in Northern California areas like Redding, where it gets very, very hot. We don't get quite to those levels here. We'll have some few days out of the year where we're breaking 100, but it's not every day like it is in some of those other cities. So very tolerable and manageable here at 90 for the average July high temperature. And then if we conversely kind of look at the opposite end of the spectrum and look at the low for January, the average low temp, and so this isn't the average temp throughout the day, this is the average low in January. In Medford is 31, Portland 36, Eugene 34, and Bend 24. And so what the context I like to provide here is that 31 being the low, that's only for like a couple hours super early in the morning, and then it tends to heat up pretty good. And so I think the average, the high in those times of year, if I remember right, when I looked last time in another one of my videos, I believe it was in the 50s, in the low 50s. So anyways, you do get warmed up enough to be able to go outside and enjoy some different activities and stuff. And again, we'll explain some of those, what the options are here in Southern Oregon for all those activities. But just know that like the weather year round is very manageable and doesn't, force you to be indoors. Whereas in Bend, you're going to be dealing with, temperatures in the 20s and like I said, the 20 degree or 20 plus inches of snow. And Portland and Eugene, you're going to have all that rainfall. So this is kind of showing you why I believe this is really in the sweet spot, like I mentioned. And those are the charts that I want to share with you. So hopefully that provides you with some good context as to what I meant by it being the Medford area being in that sweet spot. The cost of living is better, the climate is more desirable to a lot of people, much less rainfall than Portland and Eugene, less snow than Bend, but a little bit more heat in the summer. So yeah, that's up to you to decide if that's a trade-off you want to have, but a lot of people are deciding to do that. And so I mentioned the outdoor activities, and that's one of the nice things about this area is there's just so many options for things to do outdoors when you're retired, or even indoors. And we're going to talk about a lot of those, but the outdoor activities really steal the show because there's just so many things to do and places to go for an easy hike or bike or kayaking or paddleboarding and so much more. So a couple of my favorites for those types of things would be like paddleboarding or kayaking on Immigrant Lake or Applegate Lake, or hiking the trail around Roxanne Mountain, or the Jacksonville trails over there around the Brick Gardens, or even just a stroll through the town of Jacksonville is really, really special. There's great skiing at Mount Ashland and camping and backpacking all through the different national forests and stuff around here, which if you're more of an outdoorsman and you're into that type of stuff, fishing on the famous Rogue River for salmon or steelhead is absolutely legendary. You can fly fish or go get a guide and float the drift boat. or you can go fish the local lakes for bass or trout, or all sorts of different types of fishing. So a lot of options there, and hunting too, deer, elk, turkey, and all sorts of different birds there. And I can promise, if you're into those types of things, you will never run out of options for places to go do that, and fun things to go do in those regards. But maybe you're not into the outdoor stuff and you're more interested in the arts. And if that's the case, great. There are so many options for those types of things around here in Southern Oregon, like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, which is unbelievable. There's tons of different types of plays that they do there, and it's an absolutely incredible Elizabethan theater that is amazing. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, you have got to check out the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. The Criterion Theater in Medford is fantastic as well, and the Brit Festival in Jacksonville, if you're interested in live music, is wonderful. And if those things don't take up all your time, then you got to check out all the countless art galleries around Southern Oregon. You can spend a lifetime just going from gallery to gallery in Jacksonville and Ashland and Medford and all these different places, and just exploring the different works of the local artists. Since this is a video about retirement living in Southern Oregon, I would be remiss to not mention golfing, okay? And what better way to enjoy all of those sunny days that we experience here in Southern Oregon than playing around a golf on one of the beautiful golf courses we have here in the Medford, Oregon area. Like Centennial Golf Club in Medford is unbelievable. It's one of my favorites because it has nice, big, wide fairways, and it's really a very well-kept, beautiful course. As is Eagle Point Golf Club. It's a very nice course. The Rogue Valley Country Club is incredible too. So any one of those really a fantastic option to go out and play some golf. And if you're looking for a home or a golf community where you can have your house on the golf course, Eagle Point Golf Club and the Rogue Valley Country Club are going to be probably your two best options there. There's a couple others that you might be able to take a look at, but those are really the two main ones. And so Eagle Point Golf Club, Rogue Valley Country Club are both great options for if you're wanting to go into the golf community living type of a situation. Another great option that gets you outdoors but not really into the active stuff is wine tasting, okay? And there are so many local vineyards here that have amazing clubs that you can join and participate in the different exclusive events and the dinners and the parties that they have. It's really a ton of fun, and there's a countless amount of just stunning properties, vineyard properties that you would never ever get tired of looking at and exploring, like Hummingbird, Irvine and Roberts, Cressell Cellars, Del Rio, Red Lily, Roxanne, Schmidt Family Vineyards. I could go on and on forever, but some of those are just unbelievably beautiful. You can sit out on their big deck and just soak in the views of the area, drinking a nice glass of wine and having some snacks and appetizers. It's just such a fun experience, and that's something that is a favorite thing for a lot of the locals around here, is just to go out to their favorite vineyard and hang out for a few hours and enjoy those sights and sounds and just relax on a weekend. It's really a fun thing to do, and I couldn't think of a better way to spend some days in retirement life by doing that. But maybe you're more of an explorer and you want to get out there and see the different sights and everything of the region. And if that's the case, the Medford area is a wonderful spot to launch from to get to a lot of the different sites that you're going to want to see, like Crater Lake National Park, the Oregon Coast, the Oregon Caves National Monument, Rogue-River-Siskiyou National Forest, and there are just so many other countless areas like that that you've got to see if you are into taking pictures and photography and those sorts of things, or painting nature and stuff like that. There's so many options for places like that where you can go for a day to explore, or even go overnight if you're into camping and you have an RV or tent or whatever you want to do. There's a lot of those different areas like that are just a lot of fun to go explore, and they're absolutely beautiful. That's one of the great things about this area, is we're surrounded by mountains. To the east we have the Cascade Range, to the west we have the Coastal Range, and to the south we have the Siskiyous. And so there's a lot of mountains around here, and that creates a lot of opportunity to do these wonderful activities and just get out there and explore and be in nature. It's really, really one of my favorite things. As you can see, there is no shortage of things to do in Southern Oregon, no matter what kind of lifestyle you live. So I'm going to share a few other fun facts with you that I know are important for you to know. So the availability of good medical care is the next thing that I want to address. And so there are 4 hospitals in Southern Oregon, and 3 of those are part of the Asante Hospital System, which has been rated in the top 15 in the nation for the last 10 years, okay? And there are also loads of other really, really talented specialists at places like Southern Oregon Orthopedics and the Medical Eye Center of Southern Oregon. So with all these great talented specialists and great medical care that we have here locally, it's pretty uncommon to have to go see a specialist in another area. But in the event that that does happen, which it does, of course, from time to time, Portland, there's OHSU, which is Oregon Health and Sciences University. It's only about a 4-hour drive away, or an hour flight. So that is there, and that's an option if necessary. But from what I understand of my own experiences and with, you know, all of my clients and my friends and my family and all that, the need to have to go out of the Southern Oregon area is pretty uncommon. And that brings me to my next point, which is the location of Medford, Oregon is just so convenient, okay? Interstate 5 runs right through it, which is the main interstate that runs north-south from Mexico to Canada. And there's other major highways that run through here, like Highway 199 that runs towards the Oregon coast, where you can then take the popular 101 up or down the Pacific coast, again, all the way down into California, all the way up into Washington. Or you can travel east on Highway 140 to go see the beautiful high desert like we talked about in the Bend area, or Klamath Falls, going over to Burns, or even further over to Idaho if you wanted to, traveling all over to the east through the high desert. So that's really pretty. A lot of fun stuff to do over there as well. And that's one of the things that I really like about having these highways in the interstate here, is that it just makes so many of these destinations very accessible, okay, with a quick getaway. And you could be, you know, over in Bend or the coast or whatever, and that's all not very difficult to do, just a few hours either way, okay? But if you want something a little further away, you know, the Rogue Valley International Airport has direct flights to several major hubs like Seattle and Portland and San Francisco and LA and Salt Lake City and Denver and Phoenix and Vegas, and I'm probably forgetting some, but you can get to a lot of places with a direct flight, and you can get almost anywhere on Earth with a single layover. So it's pretty cool to have that nice little hub here. It's a nice newer airport. It was built, I don't know, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. And really a nice, easy, accessible airport. You don't have to get there 2 hours ahead of time. You can literally, if you're carrying on your luggage, you can literally walk in, you know, 45 minutes beforehand, go right through and be fine. I've done it plenty of times. So speaking of getting around, it's really easy to actually get around in Southern Oregon, okay? The size is small enough to where traffic really isn't an issue. And it's nice and easy to get from point A to point B with all those interstates and highways. So no matter if you're going from, you know, the east side of town to the west side, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. If you're going from somewhere like Ashland to Medford, or Medford to Grants Pass, or any of those, that's all very, very easy to do. Okay, I'm sure you're probably thinking right now that this is all so amazing, but what kind of home can I get for my money? That's a very common question that comes up, especially with people who are not from the area. So of course that's going to depend on your budget. But if you're looking for, let's say, a 3-bed, 2-bath, single level home with a low maintenance yard, close to the shopping and medical and all that, you can find that type of home, a nice, well-kept home like that, under $500,000, okay? And like anywhere, the sky's the limit. You can find nice homes that meet, you know, your needs in the 300s, or you can find beautiful riverfront estates for millions of dollars, okay? And really everything in between. And that's one of the great things about this area, is there's such a variety of the types of homes, the types of living that you can do here. If you want a half an acre outside of town where you can have a little garden, great, that exists. If you want a big 100-acre plus property with privacy and no neighbors in sight, great, that also exists. So does a small, you know, 1920s cottage. So does, you know, all the different things you could ever imagine exist here. So lots of great options on the housing side of things. And if you have questions about that, again, I'm more than happy to answer them if you reach out. Hey, I know we covered a lot, and there's a lot of information to digest in that super guide, but if you have any questions, I just want to tell you, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can call or text me directly. I'm Brian Simmons with the Buying Southern Oregon Real Estate Team. My information is right there down below on the screen, or you can find it in the description of this video, but please don't hesitate to call, text, email me directly, and I'll be more than happy to help you any way I can. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video.